Chapter 479. Kaori Karasawa. Lu Qing muttered the name, and turned to look at the Japanese representative team. The girl in kimono was also looking at him. Her expression was calm and her gaze was gentle, without a hint of hostility. However, Lu Qing knew very well that this would be the strongest opponent he had faced in this competition. The title of top seed wasn't just for show. Shinjai sect was a martial arts sect with a long history in Japan. It was the product of the combination of local swordsmanship and the Zen techniques of Buddhists from the East. During daily training, it cultivated one's mind and nature through flower arrangement, tea ceremony, and painting to find one's self. During actual combat, it was known for its speed and ferocity, and for its mystical and explosive power. It had the mind's eye, and was good at blind fights and random attacks. Among them, the flying dragon takedown was known for its extreme speed. Once it was successfully executed, no one in the same realm could dodge it. It was similar to Peng Liyun's low-level version of Cloudless Thunderblade, but there was a fundamental difference in the way it was executed. Peng Liyun only needed to strike with his palms, and his opponent would know to suppress his mind and dodge it. However, the flying dragon takedown had little warning signs. By the time it was detected, it would be absolute reaction. Of course, no matter how fast it was, it couldn't be faster than the speed of lightning. If both parties maintained a good distance, there was still hope to dodge or block it. Generally speaking, Shinjai sect was a Japanese swordsmanship sect heavily influenced by Buddhism. Before Kaori Karasawa reached the inhuman stage, she had used her swordsmanship to combine with her fists and legs, stunning the entire Japan. She was known as a once-in-3,000 years talent. Originally, when both parties reached the inhuman stage, weapons were allowed in the arena. However, in the King of Kings tournament, as most of the Inhumans had just reached the inhuman stage, their control was doubted. Hence, such practices were banned to prevent bloodstains and corpses from appearing. This prevented Kaori Karasawa from facing her opponent in her strongest form, and could only use 90% of her strength. Even so, in the quarterfinals, she managed to barely defeat the unarmed second seed, Vagar, with half a move. It was as though the halo of the champion was already on her. Lu Qing exhaled. He didn't feel dejected, but rather satisfied. To him, he had already achieved his initial goal by entering the top 4 and obtaining a considerable amount of prize money. Under such circumstances, he would definitely be more than willing to experience different styles of martial arts to broaden his horizons and accumulate experience. Like Peng Liyun, there would be no lack of opportunities to spar with him in the future, so there was no need to rush it. As for Kaori Karasawa, it might not be possible for him to spar with her for another 2 or 3 years. Once he missed this opportunity, who knows when he would be able to witness the martial arts of the Shinjai sect. Since he didn't pick Gusai, he would rather have Kaori Karasawa. His muscles trembled slightly and his blood flowed faster. Lu Cheng's fighting spirit was boiling in his heart. He began to look forward to the semifinals the day after tomorrow. No matter how strong my opponent is, it's not like I don't have any hope of winning. Who in the world would willingly admit defeat right after the match had been decided? At the Japanese delegation, Kaori Karasawa's lips curled into a sweet smile. She seemed very satisfied with Lu Qing. She turned her head sideways to size up the enemy, but from the corner of her eye, she saw the researcher with messy hair, Makoto Otaki, walk to her side and bow excitedly. Kaori-chan, I'm counting on you. Kaori Karasawa answered non-committally. Her mind was already filled with images of the previous matches. Not bad, there's no infighting, said the leader Zhong Ningtao, happily when he saw the results of the draw. Moreover, with Peng Liyun going up against Gusai, a spot in the finals had been secured. The wildcard team had successfully completed their mission. Peng Liyun could even win against Waku, who was at least half a level stronger than Gusai. With the experience of dealing with the heart reflection punch, his chances of winning would only be higher. That's good, that's good. Lu Qing smiled perfunctorily. His fingers quickly tapped on the screen, and sent the results to Kuzuka. Kaori Karasawa. Yenjuka replied quickly, sitting in a dazed expression. I feel like the host has given up on himself. Haha, I think so too. After all, it's unlikely that Gusai would win against anyone. Moreover, Shengxiang's results are already better than Nanjing and Miluo's. Now that they've secured a spot in the semifinals, it doesn't matter who they pick. That's right, that's right. There's no need to play dirty anymore. Yenjika suddenly said. Chung, are you destined to clash with the Japanese? Why do you keep picking them? First it was Ichii Sakata, then it was Muko Yamashita, and now it's Kaori Karasawa. Are you trying to single-handedly defeat their entire delegation? Ichii Sakata, Muko Yamashita, and Kaori Karasawa were the three strongest members of the Japanese delegation. Defeating them was no different from defeating the entire team. Ooft, now that you mention it, I feel like I had a grudge against them in my previous life. Why do I keep picking them? Kaori Karasawa is very strong. It's been almost a year since she achieved Chi and got a 6th Dan black belt. If she unleashes her full strength and wields a blade, I feel like she's even stronger than Peng Liyun. I'll be lucky if I don't get beaten by her. My chances of winning against her are slim. I'm not being humble, I'm just speaking the truth. I won't brag in front of my little fairy if I don't have much confidence in winning. I believe in you, Brother Chung. Yenjika suddenly sent an emoji of a monkey wagging its tail and giving out red hearts to encourage him. You'll definitely do well. Yeah, I can't say you have a chance of winning. That'll ruin your character. But it's weird that Ching keeps picking Japanese mighty ones. Yeah, the King of Youth Pro League has been weird since the beginning. We were given 4 wild cards, and there was a mysterious woman knocking on our door at night. Yenjika looked up and pursed her pink lips. She had some doubts in her heart, but she couldn't string these strange things together. Soon, she stopped thinking and began to listen to the teacher attentively. In the live thread, Eternal Nightfall, Yen Xiaoling sent an emoji of a sighing with open arms as soon as the results of the draw were out. What's the big deal? What happened to the cheating host? If he cheated, wouldn't it be Lu Cheng against Gusai and enter the finals? Unparalleled Dragon King replied. I overestimated their self-esteem. They're actually satisfied with the semifinals. That's normal. If it was Waku, there wouldn't be much doubt if he made it to the finals. But if they relied on drawing lots to send Gusai to the finals, that's too shameless. Who's going to bring them along in the future? Road to the Arena was mentally prepared for this. Then I've overestimated their shamelessness. A plumber eating mushrooms replied, spitting. Let's not talk about this anymore. The important thing now is, does my idol have a high chance of beating Kaori Karasawa? Asked Brahman. At most, a 20% chance of winning. Pig Riding Knight answered honestly. Unparalleled Dragon King chimed in. Lu Cheng can barely beat Vagar when he's at full strength, let alone Kaori Karasawa. Although it's a little exaggerated to say that she's a once-in-3,000 years beauty, she's still capable. Let's see if she's careless or if she's injured from the fight with Vagar. As for Lu Cheng, he's always been able to outperform himself, so we don't have to worry about him. Invincible Punch had almost taken Lu Cheng as his role model. Then I'll enjoy the competition and snacks, sob sob sob. Brahman replied, wiping tears with a handkerchief. I'm not listening, I'm not listening, I'm not listening. Eternal Nightfall replied, Yin Xiaoling. After drawing lots, Lu Cheng and the rest returned to the hotel. Among them, Runli was exhausted. Peng Liyun was still under the influence of hidden scent. He didn't say much and went straight to his room, and Chaoyang sat on the sofa in the lobby for a while. He listened to music and watched strangers come and go, enjoying the solitude in the crowd. Lu Cheng washed up first, then curled up on the bed. He chatted with Yenjika while browsing through Kaori Karasawa's battle videos given by Unparalleled Dragon King. His routine was no different from the previous few days. He didn't feel bored at all. Instead, he enjoyed it. Outside the hotel, there were 2 exits. Each of them was guarded by a group of sneaky people. However, they didn't see any member of the wild card team go out alone. They're too obedient. Why don't they go out and have some fun? The leader gritted his teeth and whispered. Shengxiang's red light district is famous all over the world. Not only can they taste ordinary flavors, but they can also make all kinds of strange things. The person beside him was also puzzled. In the past, there would always be people sneaking out from the Chinese delegation. Maybe these 4 guys are a little weird. The leader sighed. That girl doesn't go out to shop either. Isn't she wasting her time coming here? The person beside him quickly explained. Runli has no sense of direction. She was asked by the leader to go out with him. I heard that she's also face blind. She can't remember what others look like. Who knows when she'll forget who the leader is? The leader was fantasizing about possible opportunities. But it's not to the extent that she can't remember when we meet every day. The person beside him was getting more and more depressed. After another 2 days of tough training, Runli and Chaoyang, who were eliminated, volunteered to be Lu Cheng's sparring partners. As for the big devil king Peng Liyun, he didn't have much sparring practice due to his experience with Waku and the influence of hidden scent. He only fully recovered 6 hours before the competition. August 25th, 8 p.m. Shengxiang Stadium was packed with people. Passion was burning like fire. At the start of the competition, Peng Liyun almost lost again. After experiencing the 6 paths of reincarnation punch in its entirety, he retaliated crazily and narrowly defeated Gusai with one move. He was the first to advance to the finals. A battle that could have been finished in 1 minute was forcibly shortened to 10 minutes by him. After a 15-minute performance, the referee once again stepped into the arena and raised his hand to both sides. Lu Cheng, who was holding his phone, stood up slowly. Opposite him, Kaori Karasawa patted her black fencing suit and stood up slowly. Top seed versus Miracle Boy. Chapter 480. Go for it. Peng Liyun, who was beside Lu Cheng, took a sip of the nutrient solution and extended his fist with a smile. He had returned from the locker room and was refreshed again. Lu Cheng bumped fists with him without saying anything else. When he bumped fists with Renli, and Chaoyang, and Zhong Ningtao, and was about to turn around and walk to the ring, he muttered in his heart. Why is Kuz cheering so late today? If I wait any longer, I will miss it. And it's not the oven's highlights anymore. At this moment, his phone finally rang with a special notification. He unlocked it and saw a long voice message from Yenjika. Voice message? So long? Is it singing or something? Lu Cheng pressed play in confusion and put the receiver to his ear. After a short moment of silence, a clear cough was heard, followed by a delicate child's voice. I'm Eternal Nightfall. Go for it, Lu Cheng. After the child's voice came a slightly coarse but equally young female voice. I'm Brahmin. Go for it, Lu Cheng. I'm Unparalleled Dragon King. Go for it, Lu Cheng. I'm Wonton Seller. Go for it, Lu Cheng. I'm Bull Demon King. Go for it, Lu Cheng. I'm All the Good Names Are Taken by Dogs. So embarrassing. Go for it, Lu Cheng. Different voices rang out one after another. All of them were active members of the fan forum. Their cheers reverberated and lingered in Lu Cheng's ears. He was stunned at first, but then he couldn't help but feel moved. His heart felt warm as if it was soaked in warm water. I'm Okamoto's fan. Go for it, Lu Cheng. I'm Nyechichi. Go for it, Lu Cheng. At this point, there was the initial silence, but soon, a clear and melodious girl's voice rang out. I'm Yenjika. Go for it, Lu Cheng. When the familiar voice entered his ears, it was like the finishing touch that poked Lu Cheng's heart, blurring his vision. He couldn't help but laugh and look to the side. This was the go for it that Ku had carefully prepared. She must have put in a lot of effort. Everyone must have been very enthusiastic and overcame their shyness. Lu Cheng lowered his head again. He first sent a fist and dancing emoji, and then he sniggered. You should have said, I'm a little fairy. Or use nicknames like Lu Cheng's girlfriend, or Lu Cheng's wife. Hurry up and go to the competition. Stop nagging. Yenjika waved her hand in disdain. Understood. Lu Cheng laughed and said, raise your hand in salute. Then he added, thank everyone for me. After sending the message, he locked the screen and threw his phone and wallet to Chaoyang. He turned around and walked along the aisle towards the arena. Just as he took 2 steps forward, he suddenly heard a chorus of shouts. Lu Cheng! Lu Cheng! Come on, Lu Cheng! I haven't won yet, and they're already cheering for me? This was the first time Lu Cheng had received such treatment in Shengxiang. He instinctively looked in the direction of the voice and saw Chinese flags waving in the air. He saw the faces of his countrymen. When Peng Liyun was competing, they cheered like this too. According to the team leader, these were students studying in Fulua, businessmen, workers who came to earn money, and local Chinese. They had specially come here to cheer for him and the rest. Thank you for your cheers. Lu Cheng's heart warmed, similar to when he was facing Bakuo. He couldn't help but raise his hand and wave at the spectator stand. Sensing his gesture, the men and women with Chinese flags painted on their faces cheered even more enthusiastically. Lu Cheng! Lu Cheng! Come on, Lu Cheng! In such an atmosphere, Lu Cheng's footsteps became lighter and quicker. He stepped onto the arena before Kaori Karasawa and gathered his aura. It was like a summoned snowstorm, suppressing the surroundings, hovering in low spirits and affecting people's hearts. As for Kaori Karasawa, she walked over slowly. She was so quiet that it reminded one of a deserted bamboo forest where the wind rustled through the leaves, or a clear lake with ripples that reflected the mountains and trees. She swayed under Lu Cheng's brutal blizzard that contained the smell of blood, as if she had no power to resist. However, once the wind passed and the snow stopped, she would immediately return to her peaceful state and remain motionless. Let him do as he pleases. The moon shines over the river. This phrase suddenly appeared in Lu Cheng's mind. He couldn't help but praise the Shinjai sect for living up to its name. Kaori Karasawa walked to the predetermined spot and stood firm. A faint but sweet smile appeared on her face. She bowed solemnly and said, Lu Cheng, please enlighten me. You flatter me. Lu Cheng cupped his hands and quickly went through the footage of his opponent's battle, pushing himself to the highest possible state. Kaori Karasawa clenched her right fist and placed it on her left waist. She spread her legs and bent her body slightly, getting into a stance. The surrounding noises suddenly disappeared. Everyone held their breaths and concentrated, waiting for the referee to open the curtains for this important match. The referee looked around and glanced at the electronic clock. Finally, he raised his right hand. After a silent count of 3, he waved it down and shouted, Begin! The second match of the semifinals had officially begun. The battle between Japan's 3,000-year-old genius beauty Kaori Karasawa and China's heavenly son of the era, Lu Cheng, had officially begun. Kaori Karasawa suddenly lifted her right leg and stomped down hard with the faint glow of her chi. It was as though she was waving a weapon and striking the arena. Bam! The ground shook violently and suddenly cracked open. Rocks and soil were propelled by the hidden force under Kaori Karasawa's feet, flying towards Lu Cheng. Some were big, some were small, but all were as fast as bullets. At the same time, Kaori Karasawa used the rebounding force to leap out like a flash of a blade. She closed in on her opponent and circled around him, waiting for him to dodge. Shinjai Sect's Xidagarba takedown. This move was similar to Lin Kei's unique skill of the fighting sect, Ground Fisher. However, instead of creating a burst of energy to shake the enemy, it was used to disturb the opponent, or to attack a group of people who were much weaker than the user. These two moves each had their own unique and ingenious moves. When Kaori Karasawa slashed the arena with her foot, Lu Cheng had already imagined what might happen next. He resisted the urge to dodge head-on, and instead drew the outline of Emperor Yen and gathered his flame force. Bam! Facing the largest rock, he quickly swung his arm and punched straight at it. Without any fancy moves, he punched the uneven surface of the greenish-gray rock. His terrifying muscles bulged out one by one, and his greenish-black veins were conspicuous. Scarlet flames that were close to white erupted in an instant. Boom! Amidst the loud noise, the blue stone shattered into pieces and flew everywhere along with the chaotic flames. The other smaller stones and soil were blocked by the tumbling airwaves. They moved forward with difficulty for a while before falling down like rain, making popping sounds. Kaori Karasawa didn't care about the hidden weapons that were flying towards her. She arched her body slightly and suddenly swung her right arm backwards, swinging the fist that was on the left side of her waist. With a bang, a white mark appeared and a strong wind swept up, causing the flying rocks to fall powerlessly. Her arm seemed to have turned into a Japanese katana, slicing through the air barrier at high speed towards Lu Cheng. Her left hand followed and pushed forward as though she was going for a second attack. Lu Cheng, who didn't dodge in a hurry, didn't panic in the face of this attack. He raised his left arm quickly and parried the attack, forming a crystalline layer of ice on the surface of his arm. Crack. The glowing katana chopped down, shattering the layers of ice armor and touching Lu Cheng's muscles, tendons and bones. However, it was neutralized by his strength and blocked firmly. At this moment, the left hand that Kaori Karasawa had pushed forward didn't hit the enemy. Instead, she pressed on her own right arm to reinforce it with her strength. Lu Cheng immediately felt a heavy pressure. His left arm began to tremble and retracted uncontrollably. His weak point was forcefully squeezed out, and his frame was half destroyed. That wasn't the end. Kaori Karasawa pressed and flicked her left hand towards his face. The glowing white light condensed into a sharp blade. Lu Cheng misjudged and couldn't block with his right hand in time. He leaned back and bent his waist, causing his opponent's left palm reverse grab to hit the air, shooting a ray of white light into the distance. While leaning back, Lu Cheng tightened his right leg and kicked it up, preparing for a counterattack. His martial arts shoes burst into flames and flew out, heading straight for Kaori Karasawa's lower abdomen before the back of his feet. Kaori Karasawa twisted her waist and back, creating a strong wind. After twisting her body, she flashed to the side of the enemy and avoided that fatal kick. Following that, she used the force of the rotation to swing her left arm towards Lu Cheng, who was standing up again. Fast and ruthless, it was like a tachi, creating a strong gust of wind. Lu Cheng responded with absolute reaction. He raised his arm, braced it, and sent his elbow out with a bang. It glowed with a crystalline brilliance and collided head-on with Kaori Karasawa's centrifugal takedown. Crack. Ice crystals shattered and fell. Kaori Karasawa's arm swung back, while Lu Cheng's elbow trembled slightly. In the reverberation, Kaori Karasawa's right arm straightened and slashed 5 times at Lu Cheng's head, throat, chest and other areas. Her cape fluttered wildly. Armed with Ice Mirror, Lu Cheng didn't panic. He responded with the Dan-Force version of 24 Blizzard Strikes, countering chaos with chaos and attack with attack. Bam 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 bam. Amidst the continuous sounds of explosions, chi flew and flames splashed like red rain. In the midst of the battle, Lu Cheng was getting fiercer and fiercer. Just as he was about to gain the upper hand, an extremely dangerous premonition suddenly rose in his heart. Without thinking, he leaned back again, even deeper than before, nearing the teppanyaki bridge. At that moment, he saw a ray of light flash past his face in a terrifying manner, leaving behind an obvious white wave of air. Boom! A loud explosion followed, causing Lu Cheng's ears to ring and his organs to sway. He almost fell. Shinjai Sek's flying dragon takedown. If it weren't for his ability to sense danger, he wouldn't have been able to dodge or block this sudden strike. Chapter 481. As the trump card of the Shinjai sect, the flying dragon takedown's greatest strength wasn't its speed or agility, but its lack of prior warning, making it impossible to predict. If one were to rely solely on absolute reaction, by the time they noticed it, it would already be too late to dodge or parry. With this sword move, the Shinjai sect was firmly seated as the #1 swordsmanship in Japan. No one could shake their position. They were even on par with the likes of Amaterasu Shrine and Yakusha Zen Temple. They were one of the major powers that ruled over Japan, not something the ultimate Hadu sect, which had only risen to fame in recent decades, could compare to. Of course, the ultimate Hadu sect, which was able to climb all the way to the top in terms of combat strength, wasn't weak either. Logically speaking, the flying dragon takedown shouldn't have regained its former glory in modern society. You lack prior warning? That's fine. I can find 50 or even 100 battle videos of the flying dragon takedown, and replay them frame by frame. I'm sure I can find something useful, right? However, logic was one thing. Ever since the introduction of the video function, no one had discovered the signs of the flying dragon takedown. Perhaps someone had already discovered it, but kept it a secret, intending to keep it as a trump card against the Shinjai sect. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, had only been exposed to relevant videos since the start of the King of Youth League. It had been at most 10 days since then, so how could he have discovered his opponent's secret? Unlike Vagar, he hadn't distanced himself from the flying dragon takedown for 2 reasons. Firstly, he wasn't strong enough, and his footwork hadn't reached an unbelievable level. Even if he were to engage in a skirmish battle, he would quickly fall into Kaori Karasawa's rhythm. Secondly, he was confident that he could detect it in advance and evade it with his amazing premonition of danger. Who knew that when the time came, he would still be dodging awkwardly. Although he had detected it in advance, the speed of the flying dragon takedown had exceeded his expectations. That slash seemed to have created the illusion of a hypersonic barrier. When Kaori Karasawa was at the level of a physical invulnerability expert and wielded a specially forged legendary weapon, it wasn't impossible for her to reach that level. Boom! The shockwave from the flying dragon takedown expanded to both sides, stirring up a violent gust of wind. It was so strong that it almost blew Lu Cheng off his feet. At this moment, the ice mirror in his mind naturally reflected Kaori Karasawa, who was a few centimeters away. She retracted her trembling right arm, her sleeves fluttering like butterflies, revealing a section of her fair skin. It was obvious that she was carrying a heavy burden and would need some time to recover before she could continue her attack. However, Kaori Karasawa's left leg had tensed up and her knee was bent. She was about to kick one of the legs that supported her entire body. She had learned her lesson from the previous incident. She would not allow Lu Cheng to take advantage of the situation and lift her leg. She wanted him to bend down and never come back. Pa! While Kaori Karasawa straightened her knee and kicked out with her left leg, Lu Cheng controlled his center of gravity and continued to lean backwards. His waist and back bent again. He straightened his left leg and turned it into a soft whip. He whipped it up from the bottom, standing on one leg and not swaying at all. Bang! The tip of her foot hit the instep, setting off a burst of sparks. The remnants of her martial arts shoes were torn into pieces, and Lu Cheng's lift was interrupted. Extending his left leg, Lu Cheng wanted to use the momentum to straighten his back and stand up again. However, Kaori Karasawa was prepared. Just as her left leg was about to land on the ground, she tightened her muscles and straightened her spine. She leaped into the air and launched a series of kicks with her right leg, aiming for the opponent's only support point. In this situation, if Lu Cheng tried to stand up, he would not be able to exert any strength. Even with the ice armor on his right leg, he would inevitably suffer some damage. This would cause him to limp for the rest of the battle, and not be able to contend against an opponent who was stronger than him. However, if he tried to block with his leg, he would lose his final support point and completely lose his stance. At this critical juncture, Lu Cheng's mind was as calm as an ice lake or a round mirror. Many thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. He gave up on the idea of straightening his body and fell backwards, even more violently. With this fall, he supported himself with both hands and did a backflip. Taking advantage of the momentum, his right leg struck Kaori Karasawa's foot with a crisp sound, forcefully causing her to deviate from her original trajectory and fall to the side. With a backflip, Lu Cheng steadied himself and met his opponent, who was closing in on him again. At this moment, Kaori Karasawa's arm had recovered. She slashed with her twin blades, splitting the air and striking at 5 different spots on her opponent. In the eyes of the audience, the condensed white light seemed to form a constellation. Lu Cheng flexed his joints, stretched his fascia, and used explosive force to hold his ground. He fought and fought with his opponent at the same time, almost circling the entire arena. Loud bangs rang out one after another, stirring up the emotions of the audience and making their blood boil. Amidst the continuous explosions of flames, frost, and white light, Lu Cheng tried to find an opportunity to use severe warning and internal explosion punch. He also tried to use army formula and fighting formula. However, Kaori Karasawa's mind's eye was strong. Once she sensed a change in her opponent's rhythm, or by retreating, she would have sufficient time to prepare. She would avoid the front, attack from the back, or attack from the side, making it impossible for Lu Cheng to succeed. Compared to Vagar, Muko Yamashita, and the rest, this beautiful girl who only appeared once every 3,000 years had a stronger mental cultivation. Her fighting style was also gentler. She knew when to yield and when not to attack and when not to dodge. This gave Lu Cheng a deeper understanding of the details of the battle between Peng Liyun and Run Li 2 days ago. They rarely used simplified physical invulnerability or other secret arts. Most of the time, they relied on normal moves, their own force, and Dan's stage explosive force to fight. It wasn't that they didn't want to use them, but that they didn't have the opportunity. If they forced it, they would expose their flaws and give their opponent a chance to take advantage of. With this knowledge, he completely suppressed the impatience in his heart and fought more steadily. Moves such as snow cover, ice burning, cold bite, aurora, and other moves were used one by one at the right time. Sometimes he used them together with force concentration. The more he fought, the more refined his moves became. In the end, he even felt like he could use them at will. At most, we'll just compete on stamina. Kaori Karasawa's sharp senses detected this, and was prepared to interrupt her opponent's transformation. After 2 moves, ripples suddenly appeared in Lu Cheng's heart. He had a strong premonition of danger. At the same time as the ripples appeared, he vaguely heard an almost inaudible cracking sound. Not good. His chi and blood retracted abruptly. Along with his body, he curled up into a ball. Just as he crouched down, Kaori Karasawa pulled her left arm out from her waist, leaving afterimages and parting the air. A ray of light flashed and a white airwave formed. Loud booms erupted at the same time, setting off violent sound waves and strong winds in all directions. Flying dragon takedown again. His scalp went numb, and his ears vibrated. Lu Cheng's Dan force exploded like a volcano erupting, propping up his entire body. His muscles bulged with strength. Twisting his muscles, tendons, and veins were all exposed. He bounced up, clenching his right fist, half charging and half pounding. At this moment, the audience felt as though they were witnessing a trapped dragon rising to the heavens, or the launch of a rocket. Kaori Karasawa's right palm formed a knife, and chopped down at the right time. With a floating glow, it landed squarely on the surface of his greenish-black fist. Bam! Her left arm trembled. Unable to withstand Lu Cheng's all-out attack in her hasty parry, her body swayed backwards. She decided to take advantage of the situation and retreat. Her steps were nimble and her posture nimble. Lu Cheng wasn't going to let this opportunity slip by. While the empty front row of spectators suffered a crack from the miss-flying dragon takedown, he raised his hands, formed a seal, and outlined an ancient character. All right. His silhouette shot out like lightning, leaving 2 distinct footprints on the ground. He closed the distance between him and Kaori Karasawa in an instant. Seeing her opponent's face clear in an instant, the smell of his sweat wafting into her nose, and the sound of his breathing entering her ears, Kaori Karasawa didn't panic. She raised her right arm again, and chopped straight ahead. Whoosh! Amidst the ear-piercing friction, Lu Cheng stopped abruptly. His feet created layers of spider webs as his body stopped an arm's length away. At this distance, Kaori Karasawa's knife was bound to miss. Then, she would have to endure Lu Cheng's frenzied attacks. However, her eyes suddenly lit up. Her right palm that cut through the air released a bright white glow. Bam! With one chop, the air between her and Lu Cheng was completely destroyed. In an instant, the air surged wildly to both sides, creating an area with very low air pressure. Shinjai sect, vacuum takedown. Lu Cheng felt a terrifying suction force from the area in front of him. He couldn't help but stumble forward. All he could hear was the sound of the wind swirling around him. Kaori Karasawa's follow-up moves came one after another. She tensed her left leg and chopped out horizontally. Dragging a razor-like white light, she whipped her opponent who was leaning forward. Lu Cheng adjusted his muscles in time, channeling the accumulated inertia into his leg. It was the same whip, but with a different luster. Crack! The layer of ice shattered. In his haste to block, he was evenly matched with his opponent. However, being evenly matched meant that he wasn't able to take advantage of his opponent's opening. The battle reverted back to the previous situation. Kaori Karasawa used her hands and legs as knives and displayed her swordsmanship to the fullest, forcing Lu Cheng to take a defensive stance. There was no time for him to use the 9 words formula or simplified physical invulnerability. Furthermore, she could vaguely sense that her opponent could predict her flying dragon takedown. She didn't dare to blindly attack again. Instead, she waited patiently for an opportunity where her opponent couldn't dodge and could only take it head-on. Lu Cheng was waiting too. He felt that the almost inaudible cracking sound was the movement of compressing force, bones, tendons, and muscles. It was most likely the precursor to the flying dragon takedown. With this and his premonition of danger, it seemed like he could try to use simplified physical invulnerability to take the flying dragon takedown head-on. Through an intense collision, he could create an opportunity like just now. Bam, bam, bam. The sounds of collisions continued. Both parties seemed to have calmed down and were fighting with unusual patience. They were both waiting. Chapter 482. Kaori Karasawa's chi could be applied to her palms, arms, legs, feet, and other body parts to increase the power of her attacks. If her opponent was hit directly on the body, even if he was able to counteract the attack, he could still suffer injuries such as tendons and veins, torn muscles, and even broken bones. Therefore, when Vagar fought with her, he had to cover his fists with the power of electricity at all times to form a glove to shatter the scattered light and deflect the tip of the blade before finally completing the clash of powers. Lu Cheng's ice armor was more suitable for such battles than the lightning gloves, as it could effectively slow down the sharpness and ferocity of his opponent's attacks. The flaming gloves produced by Emperor Yen Force were similar to Thunderbolt, as they could burn the white light and explode the opponent, turning defense into offense. If he didn't have these two supernatural abilities, he would have to be more careful and only block the non-tip of the blade. For example, he would lift his palm from the bottom up, strike his wrist from the side, or push his stance. Although that would make him look like a grandmaster, it would put him in a more passive position. If he wasn't careful, he would be injured and be forced to leave the arena. Every time there was an explosion, sparks would fly and ice crystals would fall. Lu Cheng relied on his instinctive strength to battle Kaori Karasawa fiercely. Banging sounds reverberated in the air, arousing the passion in most of the audience and igniting their urge to vent. Although Lu Cheng's strength, speed, and agility were slightly inferior to his opponent, there wasn't much of a difference after his physique was fully upgraded. As long as he could be patient and defend steadily, Kaori Karasawa wouldn't make any risky attempts. It would be difficult for her to break through his stance and seize the opportunity for victory. Once she did, she would also expose her weaknesses and give Lu Cheng hope of a counterattack. Bam, 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 bam. The battle was at a stalemate. Lu Cheng, who was at a disadvantage, defended steadily and integrated his dance stage martial arts. Kaori Karasawa, who had gained the upper hand, was similarly calm and composed, as though she was slowly chipping away at her opponent. After a full 7 to 8 minutes, both of them had unavoidably used up a lot of stamina. However, Lu Cheng had the automatic replenishment of his Jindan. Apart from a slight delay in his reaction due to mental fatigue, he didn't falter in any other aspect. In stark contrast to Kaori Karasawa, he was gradually showing signs of turning the situation around. Just then, Kaori Karasawa's right arm transformed into a glowing katana and slashed out horizontally. The moment it came into contact with the ice armor on Lu Cheng's forearm, she suddenly exerted the force in her shoulder and spun her katana around the enemy's arm to execute the coil formula. Lu Cheng's arm was knocked away and his body swayed as if he was about to fall to the side. Now was the time. Tang Zexuan's eyes narrowed as she arched her back. A sense of extreme danger flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. His ears twitched slightly and he heard a barely audible clicking sound. It was like a sniper rifle being loaded or a retractable cannon rotating. In such a situation, his center of gravity was skewed and he couldn't jump up in time. If he squatted down or leaned back to dodge, Kaori Karasawa would definitely make a knife at his waist or make a quick downward slash. She wouldn't give him a chance to survive. Apart from falling to the side, dropping his stance and rolling on the ground like a lazy donkey, Lu Cheng seemed to have no other choice. However, he was already prepared. When the clicking sound came, he had already outlined the dark, cold, and devoid of any light or heat in his mind. When the premonition of danger erupted, layers of thunderclouds converged instantly. High temperatures and deafening booms broke the silent darkness and chill. Bam! Lu Cheng lowered his left arm and swung his forearm. Following the ripples created by the ice mirror, he threw a punch from his waist. the original version of severe warning. The reason why he chose this move was because he could add layers and layers of thick ice armor. Otherwise, with the terrifying power of Flying Dragon Takedown, even if he hit his opponent and froze her thoughts, his left arm would be more or less crippled. Without 1 or 2 months of recuperation, he definitely wouldn't be able to recover it. Just as the sparkling and translucent fist was about to strike out, a ray of light suddenly flashed and slashed at the surface of Lu Cheng's fist, colliding head-on with it, giving it no chance to react at all. After the ray of light, the air was split into two and condensed into air waves. Light converged and dyed the air white, just like the scene after a jet plane swept past. Boom! A loud bang erupted, setting off a violent wind wave that slapped at Lu Cheng, shaking his earlobe and ear gauge. Bam! Lu Cheng couldn't hear the sound of the thick ice armor on his left fist shattering, but he could feel the terrifying force on his body. It was as though he had been hit by a high-speed train. His arm was numb, his muscles swollen and cracked, and his tendons and veins were in sharp pain. Creak! He couldn't stop himself from retreating. His feet rubbed against the ground, leaving 2 obvious marks that looked like ravines. Lu Cheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His left arm was trembling, and he couldn't exert any strength. A bone-deep wound appeared on his fist. The power of one slash was earth-shattering. The terrifying power of Flying Dragon Takedown was so exaggerated. In the live thread, everyone's reaction was even more exaggerated. They exclaimed almost simultaneously, F***CK, he blocked Flying Dragon Takedown. I Zhao Ritian M&A. He actually took Flying Dragon Takedown head-on, and he did it. What a F***king beast. Sky-shattering roar, no problem. In a few of Japan's big forums, there were similar astonishment. He predicted Flying Dragon Takedown? He made a prediction with his body and blocked Flying Dragon Takedown. I think I saw a demonic beast. No, that's Ultraman. This is Kaori-chan's first time being blocked by someone's Flying Dragon Takedown, right? Even though he doesn't have a blade, he would still die if Kaori-chan's Flying Dragon Takedown landed a direct hit on his body. Even if he's a monster who has cultivated chi, he would still be seriously injured and need a few months to recover. How dare he block it so boldly? Amidst the wind and waves, Kaori Karasawa stood in place. Her left arm was trembling nonstop, covered in a layer of white frost. Her beautiful eyes had lost their luster, and she seemed to be in a daze. Severe warning, knocking on heart-questioning sect. Lu Cheng couldn't be bothered to check his own body. He endured his injuries, took a deep breath, and gathered his force, spirit, and various other uncomfortable feelings to balance the ice and fire and form a dan. Boom. His danchi gushed out. Lu Cheng's legs expanded. He bent his knees and straightened them, propelling him forward and pouncing towards his opponent, whose clothes had turned into short sleeves. Drip, drip, drip. From the cracked ground to Kaori Karasawa's front, the dripping blood and sweat could only be found at the ends of his head and tail. It was a testament to the speed and ferocity of his leap. Bam! The muscles and skin on Lu Cheng's left fist contracted, stopping the bleeding. Shaking his right arm, he clenched his fist and hammered down diagonally. With a whoosh, his fist burned with a layer of crimson, almost white flames. Emperor Yen Force. In order to seize the opportunity, Lu Cheng didn't prepare the fighting formula, army formula, or simplified physical invulnerability formula. At this moment, Kaori Karasawa's eyes were still in a daze, making the otakus from Japan feel sorry for her. However, her body had already reacted naturally. She swung her right arm backward, drawing a razor-like white glow, slashing right into the raging flames. Eye of the heart. Boom. The force exploded, sending waves of flames tumbling. Kaori Karasawa's black hair was disheveled in the wind. Her body was pushed back by the shockwave, and she staggered backwards. It was only then that her eyes regained their luster. Lu Cheng swung his right arm and bounced back. His hands formed a seal in front of him, pointing at himself. His expression suddenly turned solemn as he outlined the words in his mind. He bellowed, "Fighting." His muscles expanded, showcasing the beauty of strength. They intertwined, protruding veins of varying sizes. Lu Cheng stretched his back and threw out his right fist in an extremely barbaric manner. Bam! The punch pierced through the air, propelling his body forward rapidly. He closed the distance between them and approached Kaori Karasawa's abdomen. Kaori Karasawa's heart suddenly emptied. It was as if she had returned to that quiet Zen hall, back to the time when she was focused on arranging flowers and making tea. Her eyes shone and her clothes suddenly swelled up like a balloon that had been filled. Bam! Her left palm formed a blade and slashed out with a slash. Her clothes suddenly shriveled and clung to her body. Shinjai sect Kasaya takedown. Bam! Her tiny muscles and veins bulged, forming an extreme contrast with the flickering glow on her fair palm. The fighting formula was incomparably violent. In the blink of an eye, Kaori Karasawa was sent stumbling backward. Although her body was light, her legs were heavy, leaving several footprints in the ground. Lu Cheng's body swayed. Immediately he gathered his chi and blood, exploded his Dan force, and pounced forward again, not leaving a single gap. Seeing that her enemy was already in front of her before she could regain her footing, Kaori Karasawa's body emitted a soft cracking sound. This time, it was more obvious than the flying dragon takedown and ended faster. Bam! She pulled her right arm out in front of her and swung her fist diagonally. It was so fast that it left afterimages, leaving a trail of light as it broke through the air current. The weakened version of flying dragon takedown, flying bird takedown. It required faster preparation before striking, but its speed was correspondingly much weaker. The same went for its power. However, Kaori Karasawa combined them into a terrifying killer move. With that, she achieved a burst of output in a short period of time and defeated Vagar. That was the combo of flying bird takedown, triple return of swallows. Lu Qing knew that this was a critical moment. His lunging momentum halted abruptly. Expanding his right arm, he swung it quickly and threw out a punch. Bam! Fist and palm collided, creating a deafening sound in the air. Lu Qing had just used the momentum to pull back when he heard a cracking sound. He saw Kaori Karasawa's left arm striking out in quick succession. It was just as fast, just as ruthless, and just as covered in white light. Bam! He forcefully exploded the force in his left shoulder and swung his arm. Finally recovering from the loss of consciousness, he spread his fingers and grabbed at the enemy's palm blade. Whoosh! Amidst the sharp scraping sound, Kaori Karasawa's left palm sank and her right arm struck again. It was still a reverse chop, and it was still dragging out air waves. Triple return of swallows. Lu Qing didn't have time to perform force concentration. He could only rely on the senses of ice mirror to raise his arm and block hastily. Bam! His arm trembled and bounced away. His ice armor shattered inch by inch and his fascia was injured. However, he couldn't help but feel a sense of joy. He managed to block Kaori Karasawa's triple return of swallows. That combo had taken a lot out of her and put a heavy burden on her. This should be enough to turn the tide of the battle, right? At this moment, Kaori Karasawa's eyes were filled with pain. Her left palm that was caught by Lu Qing suddenly bounced up and broke through the air barrier with a cracking sound. It was so fast that it left afterimages behind. Shinjai sect's forbidden move, quadruple return of swallows. Even though Lu Cheng's ice mirror reflected it, his reflexes couldn't keep up. Just as he raised his left arm, his opponent's palm had already stopped right in front of his throat. The referee's eyes were filled with admiration. He raised his hand and announced, "Kaori Karasawa wins." Lu Qing instantly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. Kaori Karasawa bent over and panted heavily. She had actually forgotten the most important etiquette in Japan. Quadruple return of swallows wasn't a move that was easy to withstand. It was the same for both the opponent and herself. Masa Otaki, a researcher from the Japanese delegation, was looking at the blood on the stage. She was so excited that she couldn't wait to pounce on it. Kaori-chan, go step on it and bring it back." After Kaori Karasawa had caught her breath, Lu Qing exchanged a bow with her. He then shook his head and turned to walk down the stone steps. Along the way, he remembered the leader's instructions to not leave a single drop of blood or sweat behind. Hence, he took a detour and walked 2 more steps. When his back view descended the stone steps, the blood on the ground spontaneously combusted and swayed unsteadily. Masa Otaki's smile froze on her face. Chapter 483. Lu Cheng had just returned to the spectator stand when the flames were extinguished. Peng Liyun extended his right fist with a smile and gave him a fist bump. Impressive. There was no consolation, only praise. Impressive. And Chaoyang did the same with similar words and actions. Renli gave him a thumbs up after the fist bump. Thank you. Lu Cheng shook his head with a smile, the gloominess in his heart dissipating significantly. At this moment the leader, Zhong Ningtao, asked with concern. How are you? How's your injury? Do you need to go to the emergency room? He had seen Lu Cheng spit out blood just now. Although the wound on his left fist had stopped bleeding, it still looked sinister. It's fine. It's just a superficial wound. It'll heal on its own in a couple of days. Lu Cheng waved his left fist and added. The internal injury isn't serious either. I didn't take it head on, but instead took a step back. I'll take some medicine later. I'll be fine before the transformation is complete. Of course, he wouldn't be able to use his full strength in the third and fourth place matches the day after tomorrow. Luckily, his opponent was Gusai. That's good, that's good. Zhong Ningtao heaved a sigh of relief and pointed to the changing room. Let's wash it first. Lu Cheng nodded and took back his phone. He saw Yenjika's dumbfounded expression. This is the first time I've seen Kaori Karasawa use 4 aerial return. Lu Cheng thought for a moment and replied. Scratching head expression. That's true. I've never seen her use it before in all the videos I've watched. I've only heard that Shinjai sect has such a combo. Yenjika replied. Before she mastered Qi, she probably wouldn't have been able to hit 4 times in a row. After she mastered Qi, she hasn't encountered a situation where she needs to use quadruple return of swallows. To be able to force Kaori Karasawa to use quadruple return of swallows, Brother Cheng is the best. You're beating around the bush just to comfort me? Lu Cheng burst out laughing, his mood even more soothed. He sent messages as he walked, keeping an eye on the road from the corner of his eyes. He walked steadily. Peng Liyun and the rest followed behind, intending to wait in the changing room. It was quite a mess outside as people were leaving. What else? Yenjika rolled her eyes. If you say that Kaori Karasawa is very strong and that it's normal for you to lose, or if you hug her tighter and tighter, then you say that it's not a crime for a man to cry? The earlier we can get 3rd place, the earlier we can go home. We'll see our little fairy in September. You make it sound like it's easy for me to beat Gusai, replied Lu Cheng. Isn't that so? Yenjika replied with a blank expression. Let's not talk about the injuries. Gusai has them too. The main thing is that I want to experience the heart reflection punch and the fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Understood. You want to learn from Peng Liyun? It's only been a few days, and you've been led astray by him? Are you worthy of me? Yenjika joked and scolded him. After this, I don't know when I'll be able to meet an expert from the Theravada sect. Lu Cheng casually explained. Normally speaking, he would always give it his all. Yes, it's good to experience more. Yenjika sent a cute emoji of a little monster licking ice cream. But you have to remember that the difference between 3rd and 4th place is 100,000 renminbi, F*CK. I don't want to experience anymore. I just want to defeat Gusai as soon as possible, replied Lu Cheng humorously. After that, Yenjika asked a few more questions about his injuries. After confirming that he was fine, she went back to class with a peace of mind. As he approached the bathroom, Lu Cheng browsed through the live stream post. Seeing that there weren't many regrets but many exclamations, he quickly explained. I was too engrossed and forgot to take pictures. Yes, I was too engrossed in the fight. This excuse can only be used once. Haha, I also forgot about other things. It's not your fault, little tiger. Wonton Seller replied, waving handkerchief expression. Yeah, it was 2F** King exciting. Kaori Karasawa's Japanese swordsmanship is amazing. Lu Cheng's prediction is even better, replied Unparalleled Dragon King. I suspect that Lu Cheng has discovered the signs of the Flying Dragon takedown. That's insane, said Pig Riding Knight. Looking at their discussion, Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. He planned to start anew after taking a shower. Where are Yin Shaoling and Brahmin? At this moment, He suddenly realized that his 2 loyal fans weren't among the communicators in the live stream post. Puzzled, Lu Qing entered his name and entered the fan forum. As his gaze swept across the forum, he suddenly froze. This was because there were many similar posts on the front page of the forum, but they were from different people. Yan Shaoling, Brahmin, Nye Chi, Bull Demon King. All the good names are taken by dogs, and other IDs lined up neatly and said, "You're great. You're great. You're great." Lu Qing swiped his thumb and saw that it wasn't just the front page. They had been posting screen after screen since the end of the competition. Even though they knew it was useless, they still tried their best. Lu Qing's vision blurred again. He was exceptionally moved by their pure love and unrepentant support. They no longer paid attention to him on impulse or for fun. They came from different corners of the world. They were strangers, yet so familiar. Lu Qing took a deep breath, put down his phone, turned on the shower, and washed off the sweat and blood on his body. His mood gradually calmed down. Looking at the hideous wound on his fist, he couldn't help but feel relieved that there was no live stream in China. Otherwise, his mother would nag him to death if she didn't see him vomiting blood and suffering a deep wound that exposed his bones. I'll video call her later. I'll take the initiative to explain the situation and make it light. Otherwise, someone watching the live stream will mention it to her. It's never a bad idea to take precautions. After the shower, Lu Qing ate the pills for internal injuries that Yan Zhika had strongly requested him to bring along. He also applied a large band-aid to his wound. After changing his clothes and walking out of the bathroom, he saw that Peng Liyun wasn't in a daze, but was playing a game on his phone. Remembering the flying dragon takedown, he quickly reminded him. Before Kaori Karasawa's flying dragon takedown, there will be a slight cracking sound. It sounds like she is compressing her fascia, bones, muscles, and force. He was lucky to have noticed it. Without the ice mirror, who would notice the almost inaudible sound during an intense fight? Similarly, if he didn't have a premonition of danger and knew that Kaori Karasawa was about to make a move, even with the ice mirror, he would have subconsciously ignored the tiny noise. He wouldn't have heard the cracking sound at all. It wasn't for nothing that the signs of flying dragon takedown hadn't been discovered for so many years. Therefore, even if Peng Liyun knew about it beforehand, it was hard to say if he could grasp it. Peng Liyun forgot about the game, lifted his head, and nodded thoughtfully. "I see," beside him, and Chaoyang smiled and said, "I feel like Kaori Karasawa's win wasn't worth it. For a few 100,000, you discovered one of the most important secrets of the Xinzhai sect. Now that you mention it, even I'm a little scared," replied Lu Qing half-jokingly. "If they know that I discovered the signs of flying dragon takedown, will they come after me?" At this point he answered his own question. "Not afraid. If they dare to come after me, I'll post it online. Let's see who's more ruthless." Peng Liyun chuckled at his words and started spacing out. After a long while he finally came back to his senses. His expression changed. *T. I screwed over my teammates. Haha, you're only suited for single-player games. While Lu Qing was complaining in his mind, Runli took the lead and pulled open the door to the changing room. She wanted to lead the way, but Zhong Ningtao quickly stopped her. Creak. The door opened. Renli saw a mixed-blood beauty leading a camera team. "Hee, we meet again." Catherine smiled amiably. Renli tilted her head. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't recall where she had seen her before. She could only pretend that they were familiar. "Here for another interview?" After saying this, she finally remembered who she was. Realization dawned on her. She added, "You're the reporter who spoke Chinese but didn't say it. You embarrassed Lu Qing." At the mention of this, everyone burst into laughter. Lu Qing scratched the back of his head and blushed again. After that incident, he had browsed Shengxiang's website in an attempt to find news reports. Unfortunately, he couldn't understand Shengxiang's language and could only give up. Catherine smiled. "That time, I only wrote a simple news report. Today, I'm here for an interview." 2 of the wild card team made it to the semifinals, while 1 made it to the finals. An interview was necessary. Otherwise, how could they set the atmosphere for the finals? That's good, that's good. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. He smiled as he watched Peng Liyun become the main character of this interview. With the experience from before, the interview this time went by the book without any accidents. At the end of the interview, Catherine said with a smile, "Lu Qing, you have a nickname in Japan." "What?" blurted Lu Qing. He immediately regretted it. He should have asked if the nickname was good. If it wasn't, he wouldn't have listened. Kathleen smiled sweetly and said, "The demonic beast from Nebula M78. When she finished, she saw Lu Cheng's face darken a few shades. After the interview, the wild card team returned to the hotel. Everyone went to their own rooms and did their own things. After the video call with Qi Feng ended, Lu Qing began to recall every detail of the battle with Kaori Karasawa. He analyzed the situation and summed up his gains and losses. Yen Zhika liked this kind of thing. She interacted with him from the perspective of a bystander. The next morning, Lu Qing, who had yet to recover from his injuries, continued his metamorphosis. During the sparring session in the morning, he held back and only did a warm-up. When they gathered for lunch, Zhong Ningtao clapped his hands and said, "We have an event in the afternoon. The organizing committee has invited us to visit the Golden Buddha Temple and interact with some of the monks and young boxers. This is an official event for the King of Youth Pro League. The top 16 should try their best to attend." "Why didn't you mention this before?" asked An Chaoyang, puzzled. Zhong Ningtao shook his head. "I don't know why either. This kind of official event happens every year. In the past, it was held after the finals. Who knew it would be brought forward this time? Yeah. I don't have anything going on in the afternoon anyway." Peng Liyun agreed with great interest after returning from outer heaven. Lu Qing and Chaoyang and Renli followed suit. Chapter 484. The official activities of the King of Four Nations were split into 3 parts. The first was to visit the famous Golden Buddha Temple in Fulua. The second was to listen to the real living Arhat Jiawu preaching. And the third was to train with young monks and martial arts masters. Other than the places where filming was prohibited, the media followed the entire process. In the afternoon, Lu Qing and the others entered the temple under the scorching sun and the steamer-like atmosphere. They admired the exotic Zen forest up close, which was very different from the Buddhist temples in China. The buildings here were sharp and majestic, giving off the characteristics of primitive Buddhism. As the Theravada saw Mahayana as a heresy, they didn't recognize the Bodhisattva or the many Buddhas mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures. The main hall here only enshrined Sakyamuni and his disciples, such as Mahakasyapa and others. Outside the main hall, there was an urn with Brahma, the god of 4 faces, guarding the door. His golden body was heavy and glowing, his 8 arms extended and holding objects. As it was an official activity, Lu Qing, Peng Liyun and the rest wore the representative martial arts suit with white background and red vertical stripes. It was a stark contrast to Kaori Karasawa, Muko Yamashita and the rest who wore traditional clothes and didn't mind the heat. Vagar, on the other hand, was still wearing his big brimmed hat and general uniform. He walked majestically and looked as domineering as ever. It was as though he had forgotten the scars of losing to Kaori Karasawa, and the fact that he couldn't even force her to use the quadruple aerial attack. Banam was dressed in a typical Nanjing martial arts suit. His hands and feet were wrapped in white bandages. He habitually walked at the back of the group, at a place where no one would notice. Waku and Gusai, one thin and one fat, were dressed in eye-catching monk robes that complemented the surroundings. During the visit, they were divided into groups of 3 to 5 according to the representative group. There was a clear boundary between each group. Lu Qing took out his phone and acted like a responsible tourist. As long as there was a place to take photos, regardless of the quality of the photos, he would take them. He planned to share them with his wife at night. As for An Chaoyang and Renli, their only purpose was to wait for him to steal the photos. Peng Liyun, a guy whose phone camera was broken, and who was distracted from time to time, was only fit to be a salted fish. Just after 3:30 p.m., they ended their tour and entered a building that looked like a lecture hall. At the head of the hall sat a sallow, emaciated, an old monk. His eyes were half closed, and he looked plain and unadorned. There wasn't anything special about him. He was Master Zhao Wu, who had achieved the initial state of Luohan, and was equivalent to someone who had just entered the physical invulnerability state. Zhao Wu didn't even lift his eyelids. His attitude was calm. Seeing that everyone had gathered, he started to speak in the Pali language that Buddha used to write the scriptures. The four middle-aged monks standing on his left and right translated in English, Chinese, Japanese, and Shengxiang language at the same time. Their voices overlapped and echoed in the meditation hall. There was an inexplicable deep and distant, solemn and enlightening feeling. Lu Qing listened with great interest, trying to broaden his knowledge. But as he listened, he began to have doubts. Master Zhao Wu wasn't talking about Buddhist scriptures or stories, but the actual cultivation method of the 16 insight wisdom, starting from understanding the body and mind, step by step, using metaphors to explain. It made people feel that they could really learn something from it. It can't be. Is the cultivation method of the 16 insight wisdom so worthless that he would just casually teach it to us? Lu Qing moved closer to Peng Liyun and whispered. This was equivalent to the core strength of the ice sect and the fire sect. Peng Liyun tilted his head and looked at him. His lips opened and closed. His voice was inaudible, but it went straight into Lu Qing's ears. He's only talking about the basics. He won't talk about the more profound content of the 16 insight wisdom. If you're really interested and walk on this path, he'll definitely welcome you with open arms and legs. He'll personally guide you and teach you. Seeing that Lu Qing was enlightened, he continued, it's not bad to listen to it. The 16 insight wisdom isn't recorded in any Buddhist scriptures. It's a practical cultivation method that was refined by the eminent monks after Sakyamuni, who cultivated Arhat Buddhahood. Yes, they're called saints. It's very interesting. Lu Qing sized Peng Liyun up and smiled curiously. It's normal for me to listen to it. You're a Taoist disciple, half a practitioner. Why are you here to listen to it? I've decided to give Peng Liyun a nickname. He'll be called Taoist. A Taoist who's always in a trance. Peng Liyun laughed softly. Since the Song dynasty, there have been many mutual interpretations of Buddhist scriptures, perfecting each other's philosophical system. Some of them also fused with each other's cultivation method. If I listen to Hinayana, I might be able to comprehend by analogy. As he spoke, he seemed to have thought of something. His eyes started to drift and his thoughts were no longer focused. Lu Qing's heart skipped a beat. He straightened his body and raised his head. Coincidentally, he saw Master Zhao Wu looking at him and nodding his head slightly. He wasn't angry, sullen, happy, or smiling. However, that pair of half-closed eyes suddenly opened. At the same time when they opened, Lu Qing's eyes seemed to be filled with radiance. He saw Master Zhao Wu's skin turn golden. He grew 3 heads and extended 6 arms. His entire body was emitting flames, sacred and dignified. It can't be? Is there really such a thing as the golden body of Arhat? Lu Qing was deeply shocked. He subconsciously formed an ice mirror to reflect his surroundings. He suspected that his senses and spirit were affected by Master Zhao Wu's mystical abilities, and that he was hallucinating. In the ice mirror, the water shimmered. A golden body Arhat with 3 heads and 6 arms shone brightly. It's real. Lu Qing didn't believe in superstition. He simply did a force concentration to balance the rotation of ice and fire, forming a miniature starry sky, where darkness and light, cold and high temperature coexisted. This was to maximize the subtle premonition that had merged with his body. The surroundings seemed to have become empty. As Lu Qing released his force concentration, he looked at Zhao Wu again. He discovered that his muscles had already bulged into a streamlined shape. His skin was emitting a dark golden glow. However, where were the 3 heads, 6 arms? Where were the flames emitting from his entire body? No, in the void around him, his aura condensed as though it had materialized. Faintly, 2 blurry heads and 4 arms holding weapons appeared. At this point, Lu Qing understood the gist of it. The golden body Arhat he saw earlier was half real and half fake. It was formed by the aura condensed by Master Zhao Wu's physical body and his powerful spirit. This is an expert of the same level as a physical invulnerability expert. Thinking back to the scene of Master in the White World, he was really a land immortal. As he thought about it, Lu Qing's state of mind calmed down. He leisurely admired Zhao Wu's miraculous display. His gaze swept past Peng Liyun. He discovered that his eyes were out of focus and his expression was blank. He didn't know where he was wandering. He didn't care about the golden body Arhut at all. Master Zhao Wu's coquettish eyes were thrown at a blind man. Lu Qing criticized silently. He shifted his gaze and saw Renli looking at the seat of honor attentively. The light in her eyes flickered as though a storm was gathering. And Chaoyang was muttering to himself with a sentimental expression, as though he was reciting a poem. Reciting a poem? Lu Qing tilted his ears in surprise. He heard in Chaoyang reciting softly, "That year, I kowtowed and embraced the dust. Not for Buddha, but for your warmth." Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but curse silently. Hee, this bunch of salted fish. They came here to listen to the scriptures for nothing. Well, except for Renli. I'll have to tell this to Cuckoo. It'll definitely make her laugh. At 4:10 p.m., the lecture ended. The group walked out of the meditation hall. Lu Qing casually sized up Kaori Karasawa, Vagar and the rest. He wanted to see any reaction from witnessing the golden body Arhut, from their faces. However, they were all determined people. Their expressions had already returned to normal. He couldn't see any clues. On the other hand, the other boxing masters and samurai were still in a daze. They were obviously in a great shock, and were about to doubt their lives. Next was the tutorial session. According to the arrangement of the organizing committee, they were divided into two groups. A few female contestants went to guide the younger female boxing masters. The rest went to the dining hall to taste the monk's rice and wait for their turn. Worried that Renli would get lost, the leader Zhong Ningtao gave Lu Qing a few words of advice before hurrying over. Muko Yamashita watched quietly and nodded his head slightly. Dining hall. The monk's rice was served one by one. The water was clear and the rice was coarse. It was extremely simple. Lu Qing, Peng Liyun and Chaoyang each ate a few mouthfuls before stopping. Why would they torture themselves when they weren't hungry? Speaking of which, I'm starting to miss the various delicacies of my homeland. Lu Qing swallowed his saliva. After a short while, the monks started to clean up the tableware. Muko Yamashita, who was not far away, glanced over from the corner of his eye. Seeing that the three of them had no objections, and allowed the monk to take away the utensils in front of them, a smile appeared on his face unconsciously. This monk had already been bribed. The utensils they used would be directly collected by Otaki Mamatori. Although Lu Qing and the rest had been eating out every day, they weren't pre-ordered. Hence, they couldn't be bribed in advance. Moreover, their leader would take care of things at the end. This time, the leader had already been transferred away. At this moment, Lu Qing suddenly remembered something. He quickly stopped the monk who was about to leave with the utensils. He smiled at Peng Liyun and Chaoyang and said, "You guys are too careless. Where is this place? This is Nanyang. Sorcery is rampant and curses are everywhere. You can't leave anything closely related to yourself behind to prevent others from using it to cast spells." This was what he thought of according to the leader's instructions. Seeing that Peng Liyun and Chaoyang were in a daze, Lu Qing proudly wiped the edge of the bowl he used, and wiped the other utensils that were stained with his saliva. The dark flame flickered. It didn't burn the material, but it was slightly steaming. "That's a good move," Peng Liyun praised. To be able to use the flame to remove the traces without burning the utensils. This level of control was admirable. Lu Cheng's transformation should be complete soon, right? As he spoke, he stood up as well. A silvery white flame appeared in his hand. He wiped all the utensils that belonged to him, and didn't leave anything else behind. Seeing this, Chaoyang was eager to start as well. He hadn't cultivated his supernatural ability yet, so he could only destroy with special waves. In the end, he shamefully took out wet wipes. Muko Yamashita, who was not far away, watched silently dumbfounded. While the female experts were giving guidance, a sudden gust of wind blew over, dispelling the dullness and teasing Run Li's straight hair. After reaching 6th pin, each strand of her hair was very sturdy. Without external forces, it would be hard for it to fall. During guidance training, there was no need to tie up her hair. Just then, Kaori Karasawa, who was near her, quietly flicked her fingers. A twisting gust of wind was hidden in the natural environment, perfectly complementing the movements of the training girl. It twisted 2 strands of Renli's hair and silently tore them off, as if accidentally caused by the girl's moves. No one could train absolute reaction to their hair. 2 strands of black hair with hair follicles fell. Although Renli felt it, she didn't find it strange and continued to feed the training girl. Kaori Karasawa's expression became more relaxed, the smile on her face still as sweet as ever. After the guidance, she pretended that an item had fallen and rolled to the side. She walked over and bent down to pick it up. When Renli returned to the canteen, Lu Qing told her about the Nanyang sorcery and curse voodoo and reminded her to be careful. Renli replied confidently, "That's nothing. I know curses too." "You know curses too?" asked Lu Qing, shocked. "Yeah. There are some voodoo curses in the plague sect. It takes a long time to prepare, and there's no time to use them in battle. Also, the materials that can be gathered are usually useless and often fail. However, it's 100% accurate for myself," said Renli thoughtfully. "I think I lost a few strands of hair just now. I can reverse the curse." At this point, she looked at Zhong Ningtao eagerly. "Leader, I'd like to apply to go out and buy some materials." "Damn, I didn't expect you to be this kind of Renli. I can't afford to offend you." Lu Qing couldn't help but wipe his cold sweat. "She knows how to curse." "That's not right. I think I can reflect curses." At this thought, he didn't say anything else. Together with Peng Liyun and Chaoyang and the rest, they headed to the square to guide the pugilists and acolytes who were at most 12 or 13 years old. Lu Qing couldn't help but feel a little emotional when he saw their youthful but devoted expressions and their skillful but fierce movements. In China, this age was the first time they came into contact with martial arts. They were still at the stage of building the foundation and training their bodies. They were still a few years away from forming combat strength. It wasn't that long, but the whole society had come to a consensus that practicing martial arts at such a young age would interfere with their development and cause various negative consequences. It could also affect the child's mental health. During this process, quality education would be supplemented to prevent 1 or 2 of them from becoming illiterate. If their martial arts path was cut off in the future, they wouldn't become handicapped. However, this wasn't the case in Shengxiang. Most of them were poor and led a tough life. Although it wasn't to the extent that they didn't have a proper meal, they weren't much better off either. They had to work hard to support themselves from a young age. If they were lucky enough to be chosen to practice martial arts, it was a great thing. The earlier they could master it, the earlier they could have combat strength, and the earlier they could serve the nurturer. This was the common wish of all parties. Due to the lack of high-level experts, many of the referees here weren't up to standard. Fights were often out of control, and the smell of blood and cruelty permeated the air. However, such boxing matches were unusually popular. Many people loved them, and were willing to spend money for them. According to the reports he had read, the boxing masters in Shengxiang were a group with a high rate of disability. If they hadn't reached the inhuman stage and had their root pulp mutated, they would often suffer from illness and pain after they passed their prime. They might not even live past 50. Of course, compared to many other professions, this was already very fortunate. Not only was the income good, but they could also bully the weak with their martial arts and seize some resources. As for transvestites, they were glorious for a moment, but painful for many years. The reason why there was such a difference between the two countries was because other than martial arts, China was developing well in other aspects as well. For children, practicing martial arts was mostly a dream and a future, but for people of the same age in Shengxiang, it was only a matter of survival. Lu Qing guided them with all his heart. There was no discrimination, only sighing. The qualifications of the child opposite them were only average. In China, he wouldn't be able to pass the first distribution. He had to study at 5:30 p.m. The event ended. Lu Qing and the rest didn't encounter any trouble. They successfully found a place to eat and returned to the hotel. At night, at the place where the Japanese representatives were staying, the researcher, Masai Otaki, held back his excitement and started the preliminary treatment of Renli's hair, intending to separate the hair follicles. He was concentrating on the operation when a dim light suddenly lit up in front of him. He saw the 2 strands of hair burning rapidly, turning into ashes in an instant, giving off a faint fruity fragrance. How did this happen? Masai Otaki was dumbfounded. After a few minutes, the phone in the room of the Japanese representative's leader rang. He picked it up and realized it was Masai Otaki. He was shouting with difficulty, "Help, help, help!" The leader hurried out and called for help. He opened the door of Masai Otaki's room and saw him lying on the floor, curled up like a shrimp, vomiting non-stop. He seemed to be in pain. It's poisonous," Masai Otaki struggled to say after seeing the help. "Seems like a mistake." Renly stared blankly at the dazzling array of decorations in front of her, and muttered to herself, "There shouldn't be anyone around, right? Forget it, I won't really hurt anyone. I'll just feel uncomfortable for a while. Yes, that's settled." Renly clapped her hands and walked to the bathroom happily, intending to take a good bath. The next day, August 27th, Lu Chung, who had mostly recovered from his injuries, felt that he would be able to complete his transformation in another 2 to 3 days and truly enter the inhuman stage. After the morning sparring session, he rested, watched the videos, and waited for the next match to experience the 6 paths of reincarnation punch. As for whether Peng Liyun or Kaori Karasawa would be the final champion, he would definitely stand on his teammate's side. At 7:30 p.m., they arrived at the Xingxiang Stadium after a full meal. They entered the changing room to make the final adjustments before the match. Outside the door, there was a sea of people and the heat was overwhelming. It didn't seem like they were watching the finals, but rather a festival. Inside the door, Peng Liyun was holding his phone horizontally. It was playing the battle video between Lu Qing and Kaori Karasawa. However, his eyes weren't focused on the screen, as if he was thinking of something. Renly, who had nothing to do, was also playing with her phone. Her beautiful eyebrows furrowed from time to time, as if she wanted to argue with someone. However, she controlled herself in the end. And Chaoyang, on the other hand, had his headphones on, listening to music quietly as if he was in a deserted place. As for Lu Chung, he was, of course, chatting with his little fairy. "If you lose, I'll laugh at you for the rest of my life," cover mouth snicker emoji. "For the rest of my life." Lu Cheng's lips curled as he typed. "This feels so scary. I have to think about how much I should lose." Just like that, time ticked by. Lu Cheng put away his phone, intending to close his eyes and rest for 15 minutes. At this moment, he caught a glimpse of Peng Liyun's return from the corner of his eye. His eyes were rejuvenated, and he couldn't help but remember something. He asked in a low voice, "What's with the curse? It feels weird and scary. Is it based on the principle of quantum entanglement?" He guessed with his half-baked knowledge of physics. Peng Liyun turned his head to look at him and chuckled. "That's a blind spot in my knowledge. I'm just an undergraduate. Hey, you know this joke?" Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. "I'm not a caveman." Peng Liyun shook the phone in his hand, amused. Both he and Lu Qing were rather relaxed. In the Japanese representatives area, the leader took a deep breath and threw all the distracting thoughts to the back of his mind. He looked at Kaori Karasawa and asked, "How do you feel?" Next up was the battle for Japan's honor. Kaori Karasawa moved her limbs and smiled. "Not bad. My injuries should be fine now." "Good." The leader nodded in satisfaction. In another changing room, Gusai, who was preparing, saw the leader walking over and heard him say in a deep voice, "Lu Qing defeated Muko Yamashita, Banam, and even forced Kaori Karasawa to use the quadruple aerial ace. He's publicly recognized as one of the top 4 experts in this competition. If you can defeat him, you'll be able to clear your name and Xingxiang's name. You'll be praised by everyone and receive all the glory." Gusai was also an accomplished monk. He wasn't agitated when he heard that. Instead, he replied calmly, "He's a true expert. There's a certain gap between us. It's unlikely that I'll win. Besides, he was also injured in the battle with Peng Liyun. Don't worry. We've already contacted Wu Sheng from Miluo. He'll be the referee for the match between you and Lu Cheng," said the leader proudly. "Lu Cheng will find out and be suspected by everyone." Gusai shook his head slowly. "No, because he won't affect your opponent or interfere with your battle. It's just that his mutated ability can help you perform better at crucial moments without attracting attention. Fight with all your heart and show everyone what the right way is. The leader waved his hand passionately. Entering the finals would be too eye-catching. Third place was just right. After a moment of silence, Gusai replied, I only know how to be myself. I didn't hear anything else. Very good. The leader left satisfied. Waku, who had followed along, watched quietly without saying a word. Perhaps this was the hurdle of Junior Gusai's cultivation. He would only understand after experiencing it for real. When he won against Lu Cheng, he would often feel guilty and troubled because of this matter. Unable to see through it, he would then understand the falseness of his body and mind. He would hate everything in this world and develop the intention to leave. Gusai sat there motionless for a long time. Only when the announcement was made did he suddenly stand up like a mountain, his terrifyingly fat jiggling. Chapter 485. August 27th, 8 p.m. sharp. The broadcast in the Shengxiang Stadium started to guide the atmosphere. The audience cheered and cheered. Before the final match, there would be a battle between the third and fourth places to warm up the atmosphere. Young man, go for it. In order to get more money, there's no cheering today. Only a spur from Coach Yan. Yinjika sent a message on time. Spur. Lu Qing chuckled softly, holding head trembling expression. Weak chicken shivering in fear. Following that, he added another sentence with an on steroids emoji. I can only work harder. After a few words, he exited QQ and passed his unlocked phone to An Chaoyang. He bumped fists with An Chaoyang and reminded him repeatedly. Don't take photos until I'm about to enter the arena. When you post it, don't say anything unless you can. He had run out of excuses and reasons. He could only use An Chaoyang, who was relatively more reliable among the unreliable. Oh, okay. An Chaoyang nodded to show that he knew what to do. He didn't expect Lu Cheng to have such a nagging side. After giving instructions on the live broadcast, Lu Cheng saw Peng Liyun reach out his fist and bump it with himself. Peng Liyun smiled and said, Don't make a mistake. Make a mistake? Peng Liyun knows this phrase? Does he know that in Chaoyang and I always talk about him like this during his matches? Hearing this familiar phrase, Lu Cheng was stunned for a moment. When he came back to his senses, he couldn't help but blush. And Chaoyang couldn't help but cough twice, as if he was caught talking behind someone's back. Caught in the act, haha. Lu Cheng laughed dryly and replied, No. At this moment, Runli reached out her fist and looked at him with guilt. She confessed, It's my fault for spilling the beans. Haha, it's okay. Lu Cheng said with a forced smile. With such a relaxed feeling, he turned around and walked along the aisle towards the arena. His steps were steady and his momentum was restrained. In the live broadcast post, the atmosphere was lively and cheerful. Do we still need to watch this match? When I wake up, I'm sure it will be news of Lu Cheng taking down his opponent again. Okamoto's fan said exaggeratedly. A plumber eating mushrooms retorted out of habit. That's where you're wrong. Drinking cold beer, eating barbecue, and watching an exciting match that you're destined to win. Isn't that wonderful? This is what I call enjoyment. You two go squat in the corner. Don't ruin my Lu Cheng's character. Eternal nightfall. Yin Shaoling fiercely whistled and gave out red cards. However, her ally Brahmin didn't think so. Wagging tail proudly expression said, The snacks are ready. All that's left is the competition. While they were chatting excitedly, Lu Cheng was the first to step into the arena. He stood on the left side of the referee and didn't unleash his aura. Instead, he quietly watched as Gusai walked over. This opponent was wearing a dark red monk robe. His figure was tall and sturdy and fat, like a shocking mountain of flesh. His skin was suffused with a dark golden luster, and there were many mystical aspects to him. His features were stretched to make him look small, and his expression wasn't as bitter as Waku's. Although his eyes were deep, there was a lack of insight and disgust. While Lu Cheng was sizing up his opponent, Gusai was sizing him up as well. He felt that the young man on the arena was in high spirits. With a smile on his face, he was gentle and reserved, like an ordinary college student who posed no threat. However, he gave off the feeling that he was as still as a mountain as he stood there. It was as if the moment he exploded, he would be as terrifying as Mount Tai collapsing. Gusai's breathing became heavier, but quickly returned to normal. He slowly stepped onto the arena, and couldn't help but glance at the referee from the corner of his eye. This referee from Miluo, Wu Sheng, had a dark face and sparse slicked-back hair. His expression was stern and unsmiling, and he didn't respond to Gusai's glance. He was as calm as usual. He was equivalent to an experienced inhuman mighty one. Gusai retracted his gaze, and threw all distracting thoughts to the back of his mind. He stood opposite Lu Cheng, about 10 meters apart. Glancing at the digital clock, Wu Sheng confirmed that it was about to reach 8:10. He raised his palm and gestured to his left and right. Then he swung his right hand down abruptly. His hoarse voice echoed throughout the arena. Begin! The third and fourth place match of the King of Youth tournament had officially begun. The muscles on Lu Cheng's thighs suddenly tightened around his trouser legs, revealing distinct lines and contours. At the same time, he swayed his waist and shifted his center of gravity forward, as though he was about to pounce, like a raging blizzard ready to explode. When Gusai instinctively made a leap to the right, he lifted his left leg and stomped forward. It was just a testing step. Snap. As thin cracks spread, Lu Cheng stirred up a strong gust of wind and pounced to his left. With one leap, he covered a distance of about 10 meters, just in time to block his dodging opponent. Gusai took in a deep breath and suddenly lowered his body. His dark golden fats were clearly defined, transforming into shocking muscles. He planned to take Lu Cheng's incoming attack head-on with the heart reflection punch. At this moment, Lu Cheng's fascia suddenly twisted, his muscles swelled, and his footsteps corresponded to his movements. He forcibly changed his direction and broke through the air barrier with a bang, creating a close-range wind that blew directly at Gusai's face. Do Gang Northern Wind Howling. The strong wind caused Gusai's body to sway slightly. He instinctively closed his eyes, feeling as though a cold knife was scraping against his face. Dodging to the side, Lu Cheng shifted his feet inward, twisted his knees and thighs, twisted his waist and back muscles, swung his arms, and threw a punch. Bam! The crisp sound entered Gusai's ears. He didn't have time to use the heart reflection punch. Gathering all the strength in his body, he quickly raised his arm to block to the side. Poof! Lu Cheng's fist landed on his forearm, denting it and rippling his fat, but it didn't shake his opponent's body. Twisting his waist and back, Lu Cheng shifted his footsteps again. Just as Gusai turned to face him head-on, Lu Cheng circled to the side of his opponent again, bent his elbow, and rammed into him fiercely. Although he wanted to experience the heart reflection punch and its killer move, the fist of the 6 paths of reincarnation, he wasn't going to be as reckless as Peng Liyun, who went head-on without any preparation. He planned to tangle for a while, fully understand the strength of Gusai's fists and legs, before trying it out. That way, if something went wrong, he would be able to detect it immediately and retaliate in time. He wouldn't be forced to the brink of defeat and play with his heart. Bam bam bam. With his footwork, Lu Cheng weaved through flowers and trees, launching 3 consecutive moves, punches, kicks and grabs, to complete a close-range confrontation with Gusai. He had a solid grasp of his opponent's strength. This Theravada monk was indeed gifted. His body could withstand and fight, and his strength was on par with Lu Cheng, who was at the inhuman stage. He was only at a slight disadvantage. However, it was clear that they were more inclined towards mental strength and lacked profound fist and leg techniques. With a judgment in mind, Lu Cheng pulled away slightly, no longer engaging in close-range combat. He reined in his thoughts and condensed a cold, round mirror that clearly reflected the scene within a few dozen centimeters around him. It was as though his soul had left his body and was floating in the air, looking down on everything around him emotionlessly. Once he got the ice mirror, Lu Cheng immediately withdrew his chi and blood, pulled back his arm and quickly swung his elbow. Bam! He threw a punch like lightning, the high-speed friction against the air, and igniting a layer of crimson, almost white flames. It was as though he had put on a flashy glove. With a break, Gusai could finally catch his breath. Channeling his spirit, bitterness surfaced in his eyes. He threw an ordinary straight punch with flowing dark golden light, colliding head-on with Lu Cheng's fire fist. Boom. Flames flew everywhere, and the dark golden light on Gusai's fist faded from the explosion. Affected by both the explosion of Dan force and the shockwave, he took a few steps back, not daring to take it head-on. On the other hand, Lu Cheng felt discomfort in his throat. His lungs tightened as though they were burning. He couldn't breathe, as though he was suffering from a serious illness. Not only that, he also experienced the weakness of his body. It was as though he had been bedridden for a long time, no longer able to dominate the arena. Heart reflection punch. Illness. In life, the torment of illness was unavoidable. Everyone would experience it a few times. The memories hidden in Lu Cheng's body were triggered, resonating with Gusai's fist intent. He broke through his past and was infected with a serious illness. His fists and legs became weak, as though he could only watch as his opponent threw a punch at him. His defensive movements were abnormally slow. It was a very real feeling. But in Lu Cheng's condescending view, in the reflection of the ice mirror, his blood was surging, roaring as it circulated. His muscles were young and vigorous, ready to break walls and crack the ground at any time. There was no sign of illness at all. Everything that happened before was an illusion, produced by his brain under the influence of external waves. His brain secreted the corresponding hormones, deepening the sense of reality. It's good to be healthy. Lu Cheng couldn't help but sigh as he felt the contrast between his seriously ill body and his real body. He took half a step forward with his left foot, expanding his muscles. His right fist struck out with a bang, blocking Gusai's fist that was trying to sneak up on him. With a muffled bang, both fists seemed to be out of shape. Gusai's monk robe swayed, almost ignited by the flames. He hurriedly took half a step back, a bitter look on his face as he swung his arm in reverse. Heart reflection punch. Pain. Lu Cheng, of course, chose to take it head-on. He gathered and released his chi and blood, thickening his left arm. He threw a vicious punch without dodging. The surrounding temperature dropped abruptly, condensing into water droplets and white mist. They clustered around the sparkling fist, and as it struck Gusai's forearm, the muscles caved in and turned into fat, and the dark gold turned into a greenish white. In that instant, Gusai was forced back 2 meters, his feet leaving clear marks on the ground. His arms and forearms were covered in white frost, and his lips trembled from the cold. Lu Cheng heard his stomach growling and felt an uncontrollable hunger. It was as though he had turned into an ascetic monk, living under strict discipline, enduring the sun and rain, begging for a living, and refusing to eat past noon. Dry and tasteless food, eating without any pleasure, and the discomfort of being so hungry that his hand was about to reach out from his throat assaulted his mind. He couldn't wait to admit defeat, turn around, and rush back to the restaurant to gorge himself on food. No, he should hurry back to his country and feast on the various delicacies he had been missing for a long time. Stir-fried eel, Old Lou's grilled eggplant, roasted beef with potatoes, stewed pork ribs with lotus roots, tomato and egg soup, fish-flavored shredded pork, spicy crab, braised crayfish. Images flashed through Lu Cheng's mind, making him more aware of the torment of an ascetic monk. Bam! He mustered all the strength in his body, swung his arms violently, and threw a punch. Fight for the delicacies. Of course, the ice mirror was only a ripple, not broken. It clearly reflected the reality that he wasn't hungry. This allowed him to control his emotions and not be anxious or impatient. Bam! Gusai, who had just turned around and pounced, was forced back again. The ground cracked under his feet. Shock flashed through his mind. He couldn't believe that Lu Cheng could unleash such ferocious strength in his hungry state. Food is the god of the people. Lu Cheng swallowed, stretched his body, and chased after him. His muscles were defined and firm, as though he was a deity who had descended to earth. Again, he shouted to himself. With great interest, he swung out his right arm, turning his fist into a spear and thrusting it at Gusai's throat. The Emperor Yen force contained in it ignited the surrounding air, causing it to contract inward like a ball of fire. Gusai's eyes blazed with white light. He didn't dare to hold back or test his strength anymore. He hurriedly channeled his spirit and burst forth with the 5 skandhas light in his eyes. He stepped forward, swung his arm, and charged forward silently. 6 Paths of Reincarnation Punch, Hungry Ghost Sect. He wanted to use his unrestrained greed to secretly influence his opponent's mind. He wanted Lu Qing to become more and more impatient as the fight went on. The more he fought, the more he would neglect other issues and only have the impulse to take him down in one go. This was an extremely difficult fist force to detect. The victim was usually unaware of it. By the time they realized it and tried to suppress it, it was already too late. They were already on the brink of failure, or had already failed. That was why Gusai used it as a prelude. Boom. The ball of fire exploded, the flames rolling. The monk robe on Gusai's arm was shredded inch by inch. Cracks appeared on the dark golden luster. His other palm was spread out in front of his face as he staggered backwards to neutralize the impact of the Emperor Yen force. In terms of power alone, no one would dare to be ranked in the top 3 if this core force of the fire sect was ranked 4th. Ripples appeared on Lu Cheng's ice mirror. The crystalline layer seemed to be about to crack, but it also revealed the spy who had infiltrated it. Prepared and suppressed, the fist will of the Hungry Ghost sect was detected just like that. That's pretty amazing. Turning water into ice and calming his mind, Lu Qing suppressed his impatience and cut off his greed. His punches and kicks were well behaved, showing no flaws. He fought steadily. Gusai was secretly surprised. He added 2 more rounds of Hungry Ghost Sect, but it still didn't affect his opponent. He had no choice but to change the fist force in his eyes. Calm and unperturbed, he took a deep breath, arched his back slightly, raised his arm high, and swung his fist down. It seemed fast and fierce, but it didn't stir up any wind. Lu Qing lowered his waist and raised his right arm, which was across his lower abdomen, and struck out in the opposite direction. It collided with his opponent's fist in midair, creating a reverberating sound. His emotions fell and returned to calmness. All of a sudden, the battle was meaningless. The competition was meaningless, and defeating his opponent was even more meaningless. Why am I standing here? Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? At this very moment, Lu Qing seemed to have entered the sage hour. He was no longer interested in worldly matters. He was pondering about philosophical questions about the world and himself. His interest in Gusai's elbow was waning. 6 Paths of Reincarnation Punch, Path of the Deva. This could help one overcome desires, eliminate emotions, and distance oneself from the hell of the heart. When used in battle, it could neutralize the opponent's fighting spirit and reduce the secretion of the corresponding hormones. It would make the opponent lazy and not want to defend. Even if they tried to block instinctively, they wouldn't be able to muster the energy. The 6 Paths of Reincarnation had their own mysteries. However, this state had the same effect as the ice mirror. Both were designed to subdue one's emotions and prevent interference. Lu Qing quickly adapted to it. The lake in his heart perfectly reflected his own situation. With the cold and merciless will of the heavens, he began to drive the operation of his physical body. Hormones were secreted and his muscles swelled. Lu Qing twisted his waist and swung his arm, pushing out his left hand. His palm was empty as it held Gusai's elbow. Flames quickly gathered and were about to explode. Gusai hurriedly retracted his elbow to avoid the explosion. He felt as if his opponent was like a god or an immortal. Under the 6 Paths of Reincarnation, he didn't react at all. The light in his eyes turned red. His mental corruption transformed into force. Lifting his waist, he tightened his legs and did a low kick. When Lu Qing swung his leg to block, he clenched his fist and struck horizontally like a hammer. Bam! Lu Qing raised his arm to block. The fighting spirit in his heart surged. His blood flowed faster, stimulating his muscles and activating his fascia. The desire for violence filled his entire body, causing his eyes to turn slightly red. 6 Paths of Reincarnation Punch, Path of Azura. The ice mirror cracked, and the ripples almost turned into waves. Lu Qing barely managed to hold on. He was pleasantly surprised to see that his qi and blood had become more active under the influence of the fist force of Azura Path. The hidden strength in his muscles had been activated. It was similar to the state when he used the fighting formula, but not as exaggerated. This isn't bad. Lu Qing got to know his body from a different perspective. He grasped the subtle changes in his muscles, fascia, organs, and spirit under the influence of bloodlust and desire for violence. For example, the accelerated metabolism at the cellular level. There were pros and cons, but they were all worth studying. After digesting this time's harvest, the effects of his fighting formula would increase by at least 20%. Haha, taking it easy and experiencing the 6 paths of reincarnation punch was the right choice. Lu Cheng's muscles swelled and his body stretched. He transformed into a giant. Taking a step forward, he shook his arm and swung it down from above. Gusai's feet sank into the ground, his fat jiggling. Bam 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 bam. Taking advantage of the influence of the path of Azura, he attacked continuously as if he had taken a stimulant pill. Gusai was frustrated and almost lost. Throughout the process, Gusai didn't see any sign of Lu Cheng losing his rationality. What a monster! Does the 6 paths of reincarnation punch have no effect on him? Or is it because I haven't mastered it? Deep doubts rose in Gusai's heart. He had doubts about the world, about life, and about himself. He almost had the urge to throw everything away. Fortunately, he had some success with the 16 insights. He checked his thoughts and calmed his emotions. His eyes glowed with the colors of the mortal world. Bam! Gusai's fat jiggled again, turning into muscles. He spread one arm and clenched his fist, ready for a punch. 6 paths of reincarnation punch. Path of man. At that moment, a violent force suddenly surged into his body. Stimulated, his spirit soared. This. Gusai glanced at the referee, Wu Sheng, from the corner of his eye. He was still expressionless, solemn, and didn't even look at him. However, his left arm was lowered at some point, facing him. An almost imperceptible flash of dark blue flashed across it. They've really communicated. Is this the critical moment? With a quick thought, Gusai ignored this matter. Using his unprecedentedly good condition, he pushed the will of the human world to its limits. After his attack was blocked by Lu Cheng's flaming fist, he channeled his force into it and rotated naturally, turning the human world into hell. Once one's emotions reached an extreme, living beings would suffer unbearable torment. Hell didn't exist anywhere, only the human heart. One thought of man-hell. This was the highest secret of the 6 paths of reincarnation punch. The 6 paths of reincarnation punch that even Wako hadn't mastered yet. Both the path of man and the path of hell combined. Boom! Emperor Yin force exploded. Waves of fire rolled wildly, forcing Gusai to tilt his body and take a few steps back. Only then did he manage to avoid the brunt of the attack and block the aftershock. Lu Cheng's vision blurred, as if 10 years had passed in an instant. In these 10 years, from the initial passionate exchanges between the two countries, to the time when he and Yenjika had more things to do, the frequency of their meetings gradually decreased. The content of their chats went from sharing every interesting thing with each other to neglecting some topics due to their busy schedules. Every conversation seemed to have become a mission, becoming more monotonous and less interesting. After 2 or 3 scandals, suspicion grew, and the time spent together became more and more tiring. Unknowingly, this relationship came to an end at that time. He even felt a sense of relief 10 years later. He, who already had another partner, returned to school to participate in the celebration. When he returned to the bridge at night, he suddenly saw a familiar figure. She was wearing an intellectual white shirt and an elegant knee-length skirt. She stood there, gazing at the Weishui Lake. Her face was still beautiful, but there was a hint of maturity in it. "Are you all right?" After a moment of silence, he took the initiative to greet her. "Pretty good." Yenjika nodded with a smile. Without stopping, she brushed past him. When she was about to leave, she turned her back to him and said with a half-smile, half-sigh, "When you confessed, you said you would wait for me forever." The feelings buried deep in his heart for many years burst forth, setting off an unimaginable storm. He wanted to turn around and salvage the situation, but when he saw the wedding ring on his finger, he forced himself to hold back. The slender and beautiful figure gradually disappeared into the distance. His heart was emptied, filled with intense regret. Every time he thought about it, he felt as if he had lost himself. When he heard that she had walked into the hall of marriage and sat by the riverside for an entire night, so many youthful things had gone down the drain. At this moment, Seeing that his enemy was finally in a daze, Gusai rushed over and swung his arm, ready to throw a punch. Another 10 years passed, and another long time passed. When his hair turned white, there was no one beside him to sing "When You're Old." Regret filled him, never to disappear. Pain pierced his heart, etched deep in his heart. The scene before him swayed, and he fell into a painful regret, unable to extricate himself. All he wanted was to start all over again and never give up. No, this is not the future I want. His emotions churned, triggering ice and fire. He wanted to throw a punch at his detestable self and detestable fate. Ice and fire balanced, triggering Nebula. This was the first time he tried it in actual combat since he could slightly manipulate the power of Jindan. He tried his best to make up for what he could, and to redeem what he could. Bam! His body suddenly grew taller. His eyes filled with pain and malevolence as he threw a punch. It was faster than Gusai could imagine, and the cannon punch that won him the victory was hit before it could reach its peak. Boom! Shockwaves exploded. Gusai, who felt the ridiculous pressure, was astonished. His right arm was flung away and bounced back, hitting his chest, shattering the dark gold and almost breaking his bones. Lu Cheng roared, taking a step forward and swinging his fist, hitting his enemy's hastily raised left arm. The violent force was completely unleashed. Bam! Crack! Gusai was sent flying amidst the overlapping sounds. His arm was fractured, his chest caved in, and he almost fainted from the heavy injuries. He stood there in a daze, not understanding what had just happened. The spectators fell into silence, unable to believe what they were seeing. Lu Cheng's 2 punches were terrifying to the extreme, as if he was a ferocious beast in human form. And the external force in Gusai's body was completely dispersed before it could withdraw. Seeing his opponent fall to the ground, powerless to stand, Lu Cheng finally came to his senses. He realized that it was all an illusion that filled him with pain just thinking about it. Is this because my uncertainty and fear of being in a foreign country have been magnified? Although the experience was illusory, it made sense. He had to learn from his experience and not make the same mistake again. He couldn't regret it for the rest of his life. The referee took a deep breath, as if suppressing something. He raised his right hand and shouted hoarsely, "Lu Cheng wins." Lu Cheng shook his head, bowed, and turned to leave the arena. He cursed Peng Liyun and in Chaoyang in his heart as he felt the weakness from using the power of the Jindan. Those 2 unreliable bastards, saying that Gusai's 6 paths of reincarnation punch was just SOSO, and that he could withstand it if he was prepared. Who are they kidding? In the cycle of life just now, he had lost his mind and almost lost. Just as he was about to step onto the stone steps, the referee behind him, Wu Sheng, suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, dyeing the pothole in front of him red. The referee? The referee spat blood too? The spectators stared at each other, confused. Why did he spit blood? Chapter 486. After spitting out a mouthful of blood uncontrollably, Wu Sheng's expression changed instantly. It was so gloomy that it looked like water droplets could drip from it. After creating such an abnormal situation, he could already imagine the shock, guesses, and accusations of others. What was supposed to be a well-hidden and impossible-to-be-exposed matter was now exposed to the audience. His reputation was undoubtedly going to plummet. Gusai's eyes were filled with confusion, reflecting the crimson spray from the referee. He felt that everything was so illusory, as though he was possessed by the extraterrestrial demon, and had participated in such a farce. What was even more unacceptable was that he still lost. He was caught off guard and lost without any temper. At the very last moment, Lu Cheng actually unleashed a power that was even more terrifying than the fighting formula. Haha, he suddenly felt like laughing. Laughing at the vanity, laughing at the desire, laughing at everything in the world, and laughing at his own greed. Not good. Is Gusai out of his mind? Seeing the changes in the fat monk's expression clearly displayed on the big screen, the audience was shocked after their initial confusion. They suspected that Gusai had been beaten silly and had broken down. Waka's brows furrowed slightly. With a few steps, he was already on the stage. Clenching his right fist, He punched the back of Gusai's head, knocking him unconscious. Half carrying and half carrying, he was sent to the emergency room. He didn't look like he had realized the falsehood of his body, mind and world, and thus developed feelings of disgust and abandonment. Instead, he looked like he had gone to the extreme and was blinded by the extraterrestrial demon. He had to be stopped decisively, otherwise he would really go crazy. Looking at the crowd and everything that happened, the Shengxiang team leader's face gradually turned pale, as though he was seriously ill and injured. Now that things had developed to this stage, he could already see his end and imagine the punishment he would receive. It was as though a tragedy was about to unfold. You can't even win against Lu Qing with the help of the referee. Gusai, you piece of trash, piece of trash. It doesn't matter if you're a piece of trash, but you're implicating me. What's wrong, Fatty 4? In the live thread, Eternal Nightfall, Yin Xiaoling sent an emoji. I don't watch many matches, but you can't lie to me. Since when did the referee get injured? I suspect that I'm watching a fake match. Unparalleled Dragon King gave the same reaction. Pig Riding Knight wiped off his cold sweat and said, yeah. Although the referees would occasionally suffer a certain amount of backlash in order to prevent fatal collisions between the two parties, but it wouldn't be to the extent of vomiting blood. What the F***ck is going on? As the saying goes, there must be something behind the scenes. Of course, mighty fighters of the fourth pin of the same level would be of the mighty ones of the seniors. Of mighty of the mighty of the mighty of the mighty, of mighty of Tabia of the mighty one, like that, of mighty of the of PTO. LOI. To be, as expected. To be a bee like. Invincible Punch replied. Could it be that the referee was already injured and was affected by the shockwave and fire of Emperor Yen force, and finally couldn't suppress it anymore? How is that possible? It's not like they can't find another referee. If he's injured, they can just find another one. A plumber eating mushrooms retorted. Within human control? How can they not know if he's injured or not? There must be some dirty-ass deal. Okamoto's fan used Beethoven's face as an emoji. At this moment, Unparalleled Dragon King, who had been silent for a while, said, I just checked the referee's information. I found out that his mutated ability is very interesting. It's called resonance. Every time his opponent collides with him, he will feel the impact. In other words, he will suffer a certain percentage of the backlash. And that sounds a little weird. Since resonance can transmit impacts and damage, can it also transmit positive effects, such as an increase in strength or spirit? Pig Riding Knight threw out a guess in puzzlement. Blind Student, you found the highlight. That's what I thought too. The referee used resonance to help Gusai, and wanted him to get third place. Who knew that Lu Qing would suddenly explode and injure Gusai? At that moment, his resonance had yet to be interrupted, so he suffered the corresponding backlash damage. There's no way he would vomit blood for no reason, said Unparalleled Dragon King with an emoji pointing at Conan in front of him. Yaya so shady. Brahman scored full marks for reading comprehension. Shengxiang is too shameless. Not only is the drawing of lots shady, they even bribed the referee to help. Above the Sky was indignant at such an unfair situation. How sinister. They knew that Lu Qing had the supernatural ability to reflect curses, so they didn't dare to attack him directly. Therefore, they found a referee who could help Gusai improve. If he really wins, they can just say that the Theravada sect has a secret technique to complete a mental outburst. No one will be able to tell anything from the video, and Lu Qing won't suspect anything either. Clenched fist and pounding table expression. I've seen shameless people, but I've never seen such shameless people. The atmosphere in Nanyang has always been shady. I saw the same speculation in the forums in Japan. They said that Xinjiang, Miluo, and Nanjing all had a record of cheating and bribing referees. They're so heartless and shady. I don't want to play with them in the future. Haha, Lu Qing won 1 against 2. He even made the referee vomit blood and exposed the truth. That's so satisfying. So satisfying. Let's see how Shengxiang is going to face international public opinion. What's there to be afraid of? What's there to be afraid of? He even won. This is so satisfying. Sarcasm, exclamations, and indignant comments sprung up like bamboo shoots after the rain, making the live post extremely lively. However, because Lu Cheng still won 1 versus 2, and even inflicted heavy damage on his opponent and injured the referee, the matter was exposed to the public. Therefore, no one felt sullen or angry. I finally understand what you guys are saying. I'm so angry. I'm going to complain. I'm going to protest. Yan Xiaoling finally figured out what was going on. Also, my Adonis is so handsome. Lu Cheng has been promoted to your Adonis? Indeed, being able to win against 2 wasn't something that just anyone could do. In the past 10 years, he's the first contestant to make the referee vomit blood. Unparalleled Dragon King sighed, then continued. I think it's useless for you to protest. Sheng Xiang will definitely not admit to it. Let's wait and see how they explain it. Let's see how weird it is. You can't say that Lu Cheng injured the referee with a fart, right? Okamoto's fan said with his omnipotent funny face. Amidst the various opinions, Lu Cheng was also stunned by the situation behind him. He had fought in so many matches and watched so many battle videos, but he had never seen a referee vomit blood. Who would have thought that it would happen to him today? That's strange. He frowned slightly, his thoughts racing as he walked back to the spectator stand. Impressive, winning in a 1v2. Peng Liyan gave him a fist bump. 1 against 2. Lu Cheng came to a realization. The referee is secretly helping Gusai? No wonder his 6 paths of reincarnation became so powerful. I apologize. Priest and hipster are not scammers. The 6 paths of reincarnation became so powerful all of a sudden? Then the referee must have helped. And Chaoyang blurted out, feeling that he had completed the chain of evidence. Let's go besiege. Besiege the referee and demand an explanation. Run Li's eyes lit up, eager to try. Don't make a fuss about this. I'll protest to the officials and get the embassy to step in. Zhong Ningtao quickly pacified the heavenly sons of the era. If they really went on a rampage, they would be equivalent to a mobile ammunition depot. Lu Cheng had already won, so he didn't feel much anger. Instead, he was secretly pleased. Who asked you to trick me? Now you're in trouble. You went for wool and came home shorn. Gusai, so what if someone helped you? I still won, didn't I? And I was fooling around most of the time. He shook his head, annoyed and amused. Then I'll leave it to you, leader. I want to see what reason Xing Xiang will come up with. He was now more afraid of what he had experienced in the Wheel of Life. He couldn't wait to take back his phone from Yin Chaoyang and unlock the screen. Yan Zheka had already sent him a message with a dumbfounded expression. Cheng, what happened in the end? Why can't I understand? You defeated Gusai in 2 punches. The referee even vomited blood. The referee might have helped Gusai in secret, so he suffered from the backlash. Lu Cheng skimmed over the matter and changed the topic to what he had experienced in the instant 10 years. In the end, he said with lingering fear, thinking back, I'm still afraid of that regret. There was an indescribable pain in his heart. Yenjika stared blankly at him, then pursed her lips and laughed. She was laughing at the stupid Cheng's fear. Then she chided him. Are you stupid? How can we end up without a cause? If it really comes to that, we still have to go through the divorce procedures. As long as we meet, we'll definitely be reluctant to part with each other, but we'll reconcile. Lu Cheng was stunned. He blushed and replied, Yeah, I forgot about that. We've gotten our marriage certificate. Idiot. Scolded Yenjika. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. But it's good to have such an experience. You have to summarize it seriously, and write down your thoughts. Clearly mark out the things you need to avoid and your mentality. Okay. Nodding vigorously expression. You really need to write a summary and send it to me. I'll supervise you according to the rules. Wiping hair expression. Yenjika replied. Yeah, I'll also look at this summary, often to remind myself what to avoid and never forget my original intention. Due to the uproar and pressure from the Chinese embassy, 10 minutes before the start of the finals, the organizing committee reported the abnormality in the 3rd and 4th place match. The referee of Miluo Wu Sheng has an old injury. He was affected by the explosion created by Lu Cheng and was injured by his fist wind. He vomited blood. This is not cheating. Sitting in the lounge, Wu Sheng heard the explanation from the broadcast. He clenched his right hand tightly and crushed a metal ball. He would rather be punished by the organizing committee than receive such a description. As an experienced mighty one, he was injured by the fist wind of a junior. Where would he put his face? What is the fist wind? It's the wind brought by the fist. If I can be injured like this, how can I face others in the future? Receiving money is at most a problem with my character, but this is a matter of my pride as a boxer. Haha, the fist wind, the fist wind. In the live broadcast post in various forums, people were pounding the ground and laughing at this explanation. It's just like giving away 300 taels of silver. Strong Lu Cheng, the fist wind hurts the inhuman, and the look in his eyes kills the dance stage. Someone commented. Chapter 487. Fist wind, fist wind, fist wind. Hearing the announcement, Lu Cheng almost punched the wall and laughed out loud. He praised the committee for being so blind and thick-skinned. When I go out in the future, I can add a sentence. Hurt by a scratch, die by a touch, can hit an inhuman from a distance. How cool, how strong, how tough. After sharing the news with Yenjika, he looked at Peng Liyun who had just stopped laughing. Priest, it's about time to go out. Only a few minutes left. Less than 4 minutes to the start of the finals. Peng Liyun, who had already changed into his martial arts suit, stood up slowly and walked towards the door of the changing room. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and looked back at Lu Cheng, who was following behind him. He asked in confusion, "What did you call me just now?" "Priest." Lu Cheng answered honestly and explained with a smile. "Look, you're a disciple of Shangqing sect and you're studying the mysteries of nature. You're always in a state of cultivation. If you're not a priest, what are you?" Not bad. Peng Liyun didn't have much resistance to the new nickname. He opened the door and walked out. And Chaoyang caught up with him and walked beside him. He glanced at him and said, "Don't tell me you've been thinking of nicknames for us when you have nothing to do these few days?" "No, no such thing." Lu Cheng laughed dryly and shook his head. "Do I look like such a boring person? It's just that when I'm chatting with Talker, that guy always brings me in this direction." And Chaoyang didn't believe him and asked, "Tell me, what's the nickname you gave me? I can accept it if it's not too weird." "Hipster artistic youth," Lu Cheng answered without hesitation. And Chaoyang heaved a sigh of relief and nodded with a smile. "It suits me. Looks like Lu Cheng really thinks that I'm more reliable from the bottom of his heart." The corner of Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He didn't know how to explain that the hipster, in his context, was someone who lived in his own world and liked to be sentimental. Once he entered the real world, he would always be out of tune and make people feel uneasy. "Oh yeah. What nickname did you give Renli?" And Chaoyang asked curiously as he looked at Renli, who was being watched closely by the team leader. Lu Cheng laughed and denied without hesitation. "No, I really don't." "Really?" And Chaoyang asked. "Yes." Lu Cheng answered seriously. Seeing this, and Chaoyang did not ask further, and threw the matter to the back of his mind. Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief and wiped the non-existent cold sweat. He almost never gave girls nicknames because he felt that it was disrespectful. However, if Renli found out about his casual discussion with Little Ming, she would probably chase him down several streets. That day, that night, that conversation went like this. What kind of person is Renli normally?" Kai Zongming had always been curious about beautiful girls, but he only looked at them from afar and never got close. Late stage of having a bad sense of direction, moderate face blindness, very confident in everything and dares to do it. He likes to argue with people on the internet and has a tendency to do so in real life as well. He's very happy to cause trouble. Lu Cheng described truthfully. Small stature, big eyes, and likes to cause trouble. Isn't this a chihuahua? Xiaoming's imagination was quite rich. Lu Cheng was stunned for a moment and almost burst out laughing. He immediately took a screenshot and said, "Tell me, if I show this to Renli, how many days do you think you can live?" You make it sound like I was the one who said all those things. Kai Zongming replied disdainfully. Come on, let's hurt each other. You and I are different. I have the ability to protect myself, but you don't. Renli even knows how to curse. First bow, second bow, third bow, family member returns the bow, said Lu Cheng, shaking body smile. I'm on my knees. Kai Zongming immediately sent a kneeling emoji and started to beg for mercy shamelessly. After thinking about it, Lu Cheng decided to pretend that this never happened. He tilted his head and smiled politely at Renli. He sat on the spectator stand and watched Peng Liyun walk up the stone stairs. 2 minutes later, both parties stood at about 13 to 14 meters apart. The referee started to look at the clock, waiting for the hour. How do you think Taoists will start the match? And Chaoyang asked Lu Cheng with interest. You're pretty good at learning nicknames. Lu Cheng thought. Kaori Karasawa has the Xidagarba takedown. If you use the flash attack, you'll be at a disadvantage. If it were me, I'd purposely slow down and wait for the opponent to make the first move. Since there's still a distance of about 10 meters, there's enough time to react accordingly. Renli happily joined in the discussion. While they were conversing, the referee raised his right hand and swung it down abruptly. He shouted, "Begin." The last match of the competition officially began. The winner ascended to the throne, and the loser was no different from the rest. Just as the referee finished speaking, Kaori Karasawa leaned her body slightly, took a step forward with her left foot, and appeared in a position where she could attack Peng Liyun in an instant. The distance of 10 meters seemed like an illusion to the audience. Shinjai sect, shrinking ground. Bam! The airflow formed a barrier and was knocked away. Kaori Karasawa's right fist, which was placed on the left side of her waist, was about to pull out for a reverse chop. Shrinking ground, pulling out the sword. The two were connected smoothly as if it was only one movement. It was unusually tight and perfect. Compared to the battle with Lu Cheng, Kaori Karasawa had given it her all. However, before she could swing her right arm, a palm flashing with silver-white lightning appeared on the back of her fist. The palm pressed down and pressed the glowing long saber back into the scabbard. Similar to the judgment of the 3 members of the unreliable heavenly band, Peng Liyun slowed down for half a beat before making his move. Leaping half a step towards Kaori Karasawa, he closed in and pressed his right palm at lightning speed, breaking her pulling out. Amidst the crackling lightning, he twisted his waist and smashed his left elbow towards his opponent, forcing Kaori Karasawa to pull the right side of her body away from the front to the side. As she dodged, she flicked her scabbard and swung her left fist upwards, creating a streak of white light. Within the confines of the arena, the two of them exchanged blows and collided repeatedly. They used all of their skills in close-quarters combat, grappling, and joint techniques to the fullest. At times, there would be loud bangs, and at other times, there would be silent entanglements. It was a thrilling sight. It was a feast for the eyes of Lu Cheng and the rest. They took the opportunity to examine themselves and look for problems. Priest's initial response was just as we expected. That means he wasn't careless. It wasn't easy. Apart from the battle with Renli, he was finally not reckless. In the midst of the battle, Peng Liyun, who had been monitoring the slightest movements with a portion of his attention, suddenly heard an undetectable crack. It was heavy and powerful, making one's heart tremble. Good timing, Peng Liyun exclaimed. Just as Kaori Karasawa was about to pull back her arms, he clapped his palms together, causing a clap of thunder on the ground. Boom! The thunder was deafening and shook one's mind. Kaori Karasawa's head buzzed. The force of the flying dragon takedown that she had been accumulating was almost dispersed, causing her hand movements to slow down. It was this delay that allowed Peng Liyun to separate his palms and pull out a thin, flashing thunder sword. At this point, even if the flying dragon takedown could be released, it wouldn't make it in time. No matter how fast it was, could it be faster than lightning? Lightning flashed and struck Kaori Karasawa, leaving behind a charred mark. Her muscles trembled from the impact, and the momentum she had accumulated dissipated. Crack! Peng Liyun stepped on the ground and rushed over. Visualizing a green jade talisman, he struck out with the Thunder Seal Fist. Kaori Karasawa wasn't severely paralyzed and woke up in time. Her body glowed with a white glow. Her clothes suddenly puffed up. Her right arm struck out horizontally, narrowly hitting her opponent's fist. Her hair was a little fluffy and her arm was surrounded by lightning, giving off a burnt smell and faint smoke. But it was enough to make Peng Liyun's body wobble. His right hand hurt and he instinctively swung it. Thump, thump, thump. Kaori Karasawa took the initiative to back away and create some distance between them. She was trying to buy time to dispel the paralysis with the chi she had cultivated. When Peng Liyun pounced on her again, she arched her body slightly, producing a soft crack. This time it was faster and more urgent than the previous time. Her opponent didn't even have time to unleash the thunder from a clear sky. Shinjai sect, flying bird takedown. Bam! Amidst the explosive sound, Kaori Karasawa pulled back her left arm, leaving behind afterimages as she struck at her opponent. At this critical moment, she couldn't care less that the battle had only been going on for 2 to 3 minutes. Peng Liyun lowered his waist. When his footsteps came to a halt, his body jerked backward, changing the direction of his fist as though he was trying to pry open a boulder. It bounced upwards and accurately broke through Kaori Karasawa's blade gleam. It hit her arm and blocked her opponent's counterattack. But Kaori Karasawa's right hand was already in the shape of a blade. She slashed out continuously at the same speed and with the same ferocity. She looked like she wanted to end the battle in an instant. At this moment, the sound of a vortex spinning madly came from Peng Liyun's body. It was stacked on top of one another, brimming with an obvious sense of accumulating strength. A strong repulsive force was suddenly produced between him and Kaori Karasawa. It obstructed his opponent's attack and slowed her speed. Bam! Peng Liyun threw out a punch, hitting the side of the blade. He used the repulsive force and the rebound to leap back, widening the distance between them. This prevented Kaori Karasawa's triple aerial attack from completing, and had to be stopped prematurely. No matter how fast the blade was, it was useless if it couldn't hit the opponent. However, Kaori Karasawa managed to stabilize the situation, and was no longer in a precarious situation like before. As the fierce battle resumed, she became more cautious. She knew that Peng Liyun had most likely learned the secret of the flying dragon takedown from Lu Cheng. Hence, she didn't dare to use this sure kill move recklessly. She didn't want to expose her weakness and be caught by her opponent, putting her in a passive position like before. Without the deterrence of the flying dragon takedown and lacking a weapon, Kaori Karasawa was gradually at a disadvantage in terms of punches and kicks. She was accumulating more and more numbness, and had to divert quite a bit of her chi to neutralize it. If it wasn't for the fact that she still had the aerial attack to force Peng Liyun back, and that her opponent had to spend some effort on defending against the flying dragon takedown, she would have already swallowed the bitter pill of defeat. After a few minutes, Kaori Karasawa knew that this couldn't go on. With a thought, she came up with a plan. At this moment, Peng Liyun heard the faint but deep cracking sound again. Without hesitation, he clapped his palms together again, and created the thunder from a clear sky. Amidst the rumbling sound, Kaori Karasawa's eyes didn't waver, as though she had been prepared for it. She took a step forward and dodged to the side in an attempt to let the cloudless thunder blade strike empty air. She had prepared for the flying dragon takedown to trick Peng Liyun into making the first move. Then she would seize the fleeting opportunity to execute the sure kill move and destroy the enemy. The cracking sound came again. Kaori Karasawa's expression changed because Peng Liyun's palms were still tightly clasped together. In order to maintain this state, sweat beaded on his forehead. It was very strenuous for him. The cloudless thunder blade could be activated with delay. After knowing that Kaori Karasawa wouldn't use the flying dragon takedown again, how could Peng Liyun not be on guard? Bam! A flash of silver struck Kaori Karasawa again, paralyzing her entire body and causing her to tremble. She no longer had the energy to execute the flying dragon takedown, or the flying bird takedown. Taking a step forward, Peng Liyun struck out with the machine punch. As his chi and blood retracted and his tendons tightened, he attacked wildly, almost creating a series of afterimages. Still numb, Kaori Karasawa blocked a few blows before she couldn't keep up with the movements. She could only watch as her opponent's fist stopped in front of her. She heard the referee announce the result. Peng Liyun wins. Phew. Peng Liyun exhaled, but felt a little regretful. Sigh, I didn't get to experience the flying dragon takedown for myself. But then again, if it wasn't for Lu Cheng's warning, this battle would have been very difficult for him. There was even a high chance that he would have lost. Chapter 488. Peng Liyun wins. With the referee's announcement, the multi-day King of Youth tournament finally came to an end. Only the reverberating cheers made the ending of the story even more moving. Kaori Karasawa channeled her chi throughout her body. Her body glowed, and her muscles trembled slightly. She slowly walked down the arena, her slender figure looking slightly lonely. In this match, she was completely passive. Although the battle was intense for a long time, she didn't pose much of a threat to Peng Liyun. Her flying dragon takedown, which she relied on the most, had become her weakness. It was exploited and targeted by her opponent, which was one of the main reasons for her loss. Thinking about that, Kaori Karasawa recalled the battle between Peng Liyun and Ren Li. They didn't use their sure kill move in the first half of the match. It wasn't because they didn't have the ability, but because they didn't dare to. Once their build-up was interrupted, or the sure kill move failed to hit the enemy, it would expose their flaws and give their opponent a good chance. Am I relying too much on flying dragon takedown? Kaori Karasawa looked at the silent Japanese delegation, a thought suddenly forming in her mind. Ever since she mastered flying dragon takedown, no matter what kind of opponent she faced, she could make them fear and avoid her. She never thought that she would one day lose to this ultimate move. No matter how strong it is, I should only use it at the most appropriate time. The most appropriate time. Kaori Karasawa pondered. She began to reflect on her past experiences and lessons learned. Pengkuan, I will do my best to catch up to you. I look forward to our next battle soon. When that time comes, I will bring my Fugumaru. After a round of congratulations and award ceremony, Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun, and the rest returned to the hotel. In the lobby, the leader, Zhong Ningtao, clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Congratulations on completing the mission. Congratulations to all of you for exceeding the quota. As for the reward, it will be handled by us and will be transferred to your account within 5 working days. Have a good rest tonight. Tomorrow's flight is at 5 p.m. Would you like to take a stroll around Fulua, or go directly to the airport's duty-free shop?" "I'm fine with either," and Chaoyang answered casually. Peng Liyun also had the same attitude. Ren Li, on the other hand, was lost in thought. Lu Qing glanced at his phone and suggested, "Let's shop in Fulua. There are some things you can't buy in the duty-free shop." Fortunately, with Coach Yan's reminder, she finally remembered that she was going abroad. How could she not bring some gifts for her parents and grandpa? After an intense discussion, the list had been made. She even flipped through the strategy guide to decide where to buy the gifts. Of course, his wife also needed a gift. "Alright, let's go to Fulua then. We should have some time to go to the duty-free shop when we arrive at the airport." Zhong Ningtao made a quick decision. Without mentioning the matter of shopping, the few of them successfully caught the plane and arrived at Huahai at night. As they waved goodbye to each other, Lu Qing noticed that Runli was using WeChat to contact the person who was going to pick her up. "Taoist, hipster, you guys should have given me nicknames, right? What is it?" Generally speaking, all nicknames were equal. There was no reason that only he could give others a name. Hearing this question, Peng Liyun and Chaoyang and Renli looked at each other and shook their heads. "No. Really?" Lu Qing asked again in doubt. "Really?" The three of them nodded vigorously. "Alright, you guys are really good kids." Lu Qing looked at the time and said goodbye to his friends who didn't rely on the Heavenly Score group. Then he left the airport and headed to a 5-star hotel opened by the Ice God sect in Huahai. After the second day of training, he took the high-speed rail to Mosheng to visit his master and receive some advice. In the afternoon, he left Shangao Airport and flew back to Xing Province. After a long journey, he finally stood at the door of his house. It was already 7 o'clock in the evening. "Hey, where are my mom and dad?" After opening the door and entering the house, he only saw his cousin Qi Yunfei. She had remedial classes during the summer and would live here before school started. In other words, he would have to sleep on the sofa for a few more days. Chen Xiaoxiao had officially started her third year of junior high school and did not follow her sister to fool around. Qi Yunfei rested her elbows on the armrest of the sofa and looked at her cousin with a smile. I said that someone in the community is in trouble, so I'm going to help. You can eat first. The food is not cold yet. Also, I brought you fried dumplings. It's a big bag. Hey, do you still remember your brother? Lu Qing put down his backpack and sat at the table. He opened the bag and immediately smelled the rich aroma of saliva. Different from other places, there were only 2 ways to eat dumplings in Xiaoshan. One was steaming and the other was frying. The former could highlight the flavor of the flour and was quite chewy. The latter was to soak the dumplings in oil and fry them until they were golden. Different from fried dumplings and fried dumplings, people could not stop eating. Qi Yunfei left the sofa and sat on the opposite side of the table. She rested her chin on one hand and stared blankly at Lu Qing eating the fried dumplings one by one. In less than 5 minutes, 40 dumplings were gone. Moreover, he had not had enough. He got up and took out the soup bowl, filled it to the tip and swept away the delicious dishes. Brother Lu Qing, you can eat. Qi Yunfei opened her mouth and said blankly. Compared to the last time she saw him, he could eat a lot more. Lu Qing put down the bowl and chopsticks, clenched his right hand into a fist and waved it. Otherwise, where do you think I got the strength to hit people? Speaking of this, Qi Yunfei's eyes immediately became bright. She said regretfully, Brother Lu Qing, you are not like before. In the summer, you would be shirtless. Isn't that nonsense? I have the supernatural ability of frost. Why would I be afraid of heat? Lu Qing laughed and scolded. And I am old, I have to be polite. You seem to be very disappointed? Yes. Qi Yunfei nodded without hiding. I wanted to take a few photos while you were shirtless. At that time, the girls in our class would kneel down and call me sister. She had a silly smile on her face as she fell into her fantasies. Her cousin's current figure really made girls drool. And there were so many people in the whole grade who liked and worshipped him. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He thought for a while and said with a smile, Fei, how was the final exam? Qi Yunfei returned to the human world and said hesitantly, more than 20 in the class, about 30. Which subjects did you not do well in? I remember you are very afraid of mathematics and physics. Lu Qing kept smiling and continued to ask. Mathematics, I didn't pass mathematics. Oh, Brother Lu Qing, why are you asking this? Qi Yunfei was uncomfortable. As a student with bad grades, she hated this kind of topic the most. I care about you. I am your brother. Lu Qing answered seriously. How many marks did you get in mathematics? Physics? Chemistry? Have you finished your summer homework? Qi Yunfei laughed and suddenly stood up. She rushed to the bedroom and answered in a charming voice. Brother Lu Qing, I remember something to do. Let's talk later. Clang. She closed the door and stomped her foot angrily. Brother Lu Qing, can't we have a good chat? Lu Qing leisurely picked up his chopsticks and continued to devour the food. Little guy, you want to take photos of me? Don't you know what a topic terminator is? When he was full, he took a photo of the sofa and sent it to Yanzhika, crying that he had to be the director for a few more days. Lu Jisheng and Qifeng finally came back. Mom, whose family is in trouble? Lu Qing asked casually. Ding Lauer's family. His son had a car accident. His family is in a mess. Qifeng sighed. He is in his early 30s. How could he die so quickly? Really, alas. Lu Jisheng sighed and then sighed. Unexpected things happen. Cheng, be careful when you walk next time. Don't always look down and play with your phone. Car accident? Even if it was a 10-wheeled truck, I might not be hurt. Lu Qing secretly complained, but in his mind, the appearance of the Ding family's son appeared. He was 10 years older than Wang Su and loved to read novels. When he was in junior high school, he would read some books from him from time to time. He was not married and had just recently gone on a blind date. Who knew that he would die just like that? Life is so fragile. I have to enjoy the present for outsiders. Such emotions quickly disappeared. Lu Cheng changed the topic and talked with his parents about his first experience abroad. He also gave them gifts, including one for Qi Yunfei. He went to bed on time and woke up on time. After a round of training, he felt that his transformation would be complete in 2 days. After breakfast, Lu Cheng took a taxi to Ingjin Building in Pingle District. He arranged to meet with Wu Qinggui to confirm the bonus according to the contract clause. There would be corresponding rewards for winning the national competition and the King of Youth League, as well as entering the Inhuman stage. This time, Wu Qinggui went directly to the entrance of the building. He smiled like a flower and asked, "You don't seem to like shopping? When I'm with my wife, I will shop." Lu Cheng smiled and shook his head, answering, "Not really. I shop online a lot these days." "No wonder you haven't seen our newly opened direct sale stores. The martial arts shoes we specially designed for you are selling very well, and have helped us to open up the market in the province. You don't know how popular you are in the province." No, not only the province. Especially the young people. All of them want Lu Cheng's shoes. Even the promotional posters you took were snatched by people. Is it that bad? Lu Cheng blurted out. Wu Qinggui laughed and said, "It's more bad than you think. It's mainly because you don't have any business activities. Everyone's passion is accumulated on this." While talking, they entered Wu Qinggui's office. When the door was closed, the thin and capable middle-aged man took out a check and pushed it to Lu Cheng. This was the first time Lu Cheng saw a check. He glanced at it and counted the zeros. 1 million? This was much more than the bonus according to the contract clause. "You deserve it." Wu Qinggui smiled brightly, as if he didn't want to abide by the contract. Chapter 489. Seeing that Lu Cheng was still hesitating, Wu Qinggui quickly added, "The profits you've brought to our company are completely worth this bonus. If you're worried and afraid of any disputes, we can sign a supplementary agreement. To be honest, with your current strength, identity, and status, if I really dared to cheat you, wouldn't that be suicide? Do you think I'm tired of living?" Speaking of this, he couldn't help but sigh. "When I signed the contract with you at the beginning of the year, I was already very optimistic about your development. Who would have thought that in just half a year, you would reach the Inhuman stage, and even win the University Martial Arts Tournament Championship? The number of fans on Weibo and the number of followers on the forum has been increasing rapidly. Even a man in his early 40s like him found it unrealistic and dreamy. That contract back then was simply too worth it. You flatter me." Lu Cheng smiled modestly. Ever since he participated in the University Martial Arts Tournament finals, the number of fans on Weibo had been increasing rapidly, especially after he won the championship. When the popularity of the King of Youth League of Four Nations started to rise again, it started to steadily increase. He checked last night and found that there were about 300,000 followers. Excluding those who came to watch the show in the early stages, and those who came because of his senior sister, Mo Jingting, and the others, the total number was definitely not small. After all, he had never bought any fans, so it was all real. And the number of followers on the forum had also increased by more than 40,000, gradually growing from a deserted forum to a lively one. Compared to the situation in February and March last year, when only Yin Shaoling and Brahmin were supporting the forum, it was really a pity. At that time, even he didn't expect the situation today, especially after only 18 or 19 months. However, the number of fans didn't matter to him at his current level. Strength itself represented a lot. Dragon King and Warrior Sage might not even post a status or interact with their fans once in a few months, but their status and hidden power in Jianghu wouldn't decrease at all. While thinking, Lu Cheng asked Wu Qinggui to draft a simple supplementary agreement out of caution. After taking a picture and showing it to his senior sister, Shi Yuejian, he signed it without hesitation and put away the check. As for how to use the check, he wasn't a country bumpkin to ask. "I don't understand, but that doesn't mean that I don't know how to search. It doesn't mean that my wife doesn't know." Throughout the whole process, both of them tacitly did not mention the extension of the contract. After all, there was still 1 year and 4 months to go. It was unknown how far Lu Qing could go and how much he was worth. Wu Qinggui now had a headache no matter how much he offered. Moreover, he would be suspected of binding Lu Qing. It was better to build a good relationship with him and talk about it when the contract expired. At that time, under the condition that the conditions were not too different, Lu Qing would definitely do better to be familiar with him. Combining what he had seen and heard, he could make a preliminary judgment that the other party was a person who valued friendship. After signing the agreement and taking the promotional photos, it was almost noon. Wu Qinggui looked at his watch and smiled warmly. Let's have lunch together. I'll call Chairman Wei and that girl Wu Ting. She keeps saying that she wants to see Sir Lu, sure. Lu Qing agreed readily. He didn't like to socialize, but they were in a cooperative relationship, and they had a friendship outside of work, so it wouldn't be awkward or boring to have a meal together. More importantly, his mom had gone to the Ding family to help out, and didn't have time to make lunch for him. It didn't matter where he ate. Just as they were taking the elevator to the underground parking lot, Lu Cheng's phone suddenly rang. It was from Director Xing Chenggu. Hello Lu. Are you back in Xioshan? Xing Chenggu laughed heartily. If you're free, come over for a meal one of these days. I haven't congratulated you on getting 3rd place in the King of Youth League. Haha, sure. Actually, even if Uncle Xing didn't ask, I would have come over anyway. Lu Qing answered without hesitation. Uncle Xing? Wu Qinggui read these 3 words and suddenly remembered why the voice on the phone sounded so familiar. He lowered his voice and said, Director Xing? Lu Qing nodded as he spoke. Why don't we invite him over? He and Chairman Wei are old friends. Wu Qinggui's smile widened as he suggested this. The deputy director of the police station was someone he was very willing to befriend. If there was any trouble, this person could solve a lot of problems. Let me ask. Lu Qing answered in a low voice and turned to Xing Chenggu to mention the matter. Sure. I was just worried about the food in the agency cafeteria. Haha, old Wei and I often talk about you. Xing Chenggu laughed heartily. How could he not know that Wei Renjie and Lu Qing had some sort of relationship? After 20 minutes, they met at Lesui Villa. When Xing Chenggu saw Lu Qing, he reached out and patted him on the shoulder. Lu, I've known you for less than 2 years, right? I'm no match for you now. Sigh, I've spent most of my time doing paperwork. I've also been greeting people. I don't get more than 3 opportunities a year for actual combat. When I want to spar with my subordinates, they're all so reserved. Boring. Xing Chenggu sighed and reminisced. My hands and feet are rusty. Only the gold jade body is still acceptable. There's no hope for me to improve further. To use an illusion, it's the resurrection of a dead body. Lu Qing silently helped Director Xing to summarize. He laughed and asked, I heard that Sister Jingjing is going to Huahai in the middle of the month? This was what he had heard from Ku. That's right. And Chaoyang has graduated. I'm afraid that Huahai will be going downhill for a period of time. That girl Jingjing, in the words of the TV series, is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She has been training hard in martial arts, wanting to help support the martial arts club. For this matter, she even specially rushed to Huahai early, wanting to find connections to help improve her ability. Hearing Lu Qing call her Sister Jingjing so familiarly, Xing Chenggu comforted him. But seeing how much you've improved, her efforts are probably in vain. After chatting for a while, Wu Qinggui took his daughter, Wu Ting, over. With her lively personality, she quickly became the center of attention at the dinner table. She kept calling him Sir Lu. It was not until this time that Lu Qing found out that she and his cousin Qi Yunfei were classmates. They were just nodding acquaintances. When they found out that they knew each other, they quickly became best friends. The effect of a troublemaker plus a troublemaker was self-evident. Wu Ting even confessed that she had encouraged Qi Yunfei to ask him to help teach them swimming. She wanted to see the abs of a master. Unfortunately, she was heartlessly rejected by him at the beginning of July. There was not much business at the dinner. It just deepened the friendship between the parties. In the next 2 days, Lu Qing visited his grandparents, went to Ningxue to visit his grandparents and little aunt, and visited his father-in-law who was alone at home. He gave him the game he mentioned before. The busy days passed quickly. At noon on August 31st, Luqing packed his luggage and stepped on the high-speed train back to Songcheng. Although he had only left school for 2 months, he felt like he had experienced a whole year. That was the joys and sorrows of leaving and reuniting. Songcheng University, Weishui Lake, the martial arts club, and the brightly colored teaching building that he hadn't seen in a long time came into Luqing's sight through the car window in the evening glow. However, that delicate and beautiful figure was nowhere to be seen. Quietly watching these passing by, Luqing got off the school bus and walked alone on the pedestrian street. He walked through the familiar road that he knew what shops were in front of him with his eyes closed. But his state of mind was completely different from before. Dormitory 302, Unit 2, Block 7. He turned on the light in the living room and lit up the dim room. After putting his backpack in the small dormitory where the study maniacs were no longer, Luqing knocked on the door next door. "Who is it?" Kai Zongming's magnetic voice came out. Luqing did not answer. He turned the doorknob and opened the door. He saw Kai Zongming multitasking. The computer was playing an entertainment program, and the mobile phone in his palm was at the critical moment of the game. But his mouth was close to the Coke on the right side of the desk, biting the straw. "Hey, is it cool?" Luqing laughed and suggested. "Let's go and eat." Kai Zongming spat out a mouthful of Coke, spraying it all over the computer screen. He forgot about the game, looked up and blurted out in surprise. "You're asking me to eat with you? Where's your girlfriend?" Ever since he started dating Yenjika, Chung had almost never asked him to go to the canteen. Did the sun rise from the west today? Did someone's personality change after going to Xinjiang? Ku's joint training program was brought forward by a year. She's already gone to America. Luqing answered frankly. Since Talker didn't ask, he didn't say anything. Kai Zongming was stunned at first, then understood. He put down his phone and patted Luqing on the shoulder. Half joking and half sincere, he said, "You finally understand my pain. How about it? Do you want to ask me for advice again?" Speaking of long-distance relationships, I'm not targeting anyone. I'm talking about everyone here. Yes, you know. Luqing laughed and took out his phone without hesitation. He showed Little Ming the information of his flight reservation. F*CK. Kai Zongming exclaimed, then made a disdainful gesture. "I look down on you. So what if you're rich? So what if you don't have to go to class? So what if you're good at martial arts? I'm sorry. So what if you're good at martial arts? So what if you're rich?" Luqing tried to hold back his laughter. "Damn it. Let's not talk about this sad topic. I don't have anything else to teach you. You've already understood the essence." Kai Zongming sighed deeply. When he realized that his character in the game had been killed, he felt even sadder. "Alright. You didn't rest during the summer, right? You didn't waste your martial arts, right?" Luqing changed the topic. Kai Zongming flexed his arms, flexed his muscles, and smiled proudly. "I feel like I'm close to the top of 9th pin. But I still can't find the feeling of withdraw you mentioned." "You don't have to rush. More haste, less speed," Luqing reminded him. "Okay." Kai Zongming nodded. Then, half thinking and half worried, he said, "I wonder how many strong newcomers will come to the martial arts club this time." You don't look like someone who cares about this kind of thing," Luqing said, slightly surprised. Kai Zongming glanced at him and answered firmly, "Yes. I bet you've forgotten that I'm the president of the martial arts club." Luqing's face suddenly turned red. He laughed dryly and said, "In my heart, you're the Casanova and talker. There's nothing else." "Speak human." Little Ming interrupted him rudely. "I really forgot." Luqing covered his face. "You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.